Hello and welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show. My name is Brandon, and you guys might not recognize this guy next to me here, but that's actually Jesse Naylor. I got the last name right. Hopefully, they're Jesse, but Jesse Naylor, who has been kind enough to come over on our show today. The San Francisco 49er fan, willing Jesse to come on into the belly of the beast. I want to welcome you in. First off, though, let me set the stage for my people here. Jesse is a credentialed member of the UFC. He's a writer for All 49ers FN. But from my standpoint, Jesse, more importantly, it's the Last Second Sports YouTube channel that you run with a little bit of a coverage on some of the other teams, but mainly on 49er coverage. And you've been doing a great job at that. Really kicking butt, really seeing some great growth this year from your side. I've gone onto your channel a couple times. I had to have him over here on my side of it as we go into this Thursday night matchup. So, Jay, thank you and welcome on into the Hawks Nest. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, brother. I could not pass up the opportunity. You have been gracious with your time multiple times now. It's only fair that I return the favor. And it's funny because you said, welcome to the belly of the beast. Well, I live in Tampa right now, but I was born and raised in Portland, Oregon, which is very close to Seattle. And when Seattle started to get good, their fans were everywhere. And so I was around the belly of the beast probably more often than what I wanted to be growing up. So let me say that to begin with.
I know how that goes, being in the heart of the enemy territory. I had to do a turn. I call it a turn like it's a prison sentence in San Jose for about a year and a half. So, and they don't like a lot of Seahawks gear up in those parts. It doesn't tend to go over particularly well. And what's really fun, I think, about having this chat right now, Jesse, is that we have two teams that I think have had reasonably successful years. It's maybe in varying degrees. I think we both have a chance to feel reasonably good about our franchises and the direction they take. For sometimes the other conversations you could have in these situations where it's somebody really twisting and they're turning their guts over how bad things are going to get or where things are going to go that is just going to be horrible. But there's a lot for us to turn over today. We've got a matchup to preview a little bit. And we're going to dive a little bit into that, but there's some other things I really want to talk to you about, including some of your coverage this year with the Niners on some specific things. But let's start out the gate with this, because I feel like you've got to have a little bit of a torn spirit at this point as a Niner fan coming off the heels of this game with the Buccaneers. And correct me if I'm wrong on this, but you come into this game, Brock Purdy, third string quarterback coming in. He goes out there and hands it to Tom Brady. You absolutely boat race the Buccaneers team. The defense hasn't looked any better, and they've looked great throughout this year. Purdy looks like he can get it done. But then you also feel torn to the other side because the injury bug that has continued to hamper your 49ers, as you've spoken about for years, continues to kind of be there and prevalent. You come off the heels of this. Deontay Johnson goes down. I know the ankle's supposedly not as bad as it looked at first when he was in tears on the cart, but you still have to feel like that's going to ice him down for 4 or 5 weeks, maybe there. How do you feel, man? Let me just do a pulse check on this one as a Niner fan, because one, you got to be just two different things, high of heights and also there's this dark foreboding feeling a little bit also in the background a tiny bit.
This is the lingering feeling that we've had for quite some time, really, even since 2019. It seems like there's always a game within the game for the San Francisco 49ers. Can they stay healthy? It doesn't matter the score. We're going to win a game. Can we stay healthy? And it seems like these big time injuries usually bite us towards the end of a game. The Debo one happened a little bit earlier, but last year it was Jason Verrett going down in week 1 against the Lions. This year we lost Emmanuel Mosley towards the tail end of a game. It just seems to happen. We have our starters in maybe a little too long, but you have thin rosters in the NFL. And so it's really tough. Like, who do you take out? Who do you play? It's just one of those things. And so, and you'll find it on 49ers Twitter. We'll be going through a game and everything's going great. And you'll start to see the tweets. Please just stay healthy. Just get out of here healthy. And that's the way that it is. It's like the whole fan base is snake bitten. Thank God for Debo Samuel that it sounds like he might even be back before the end of the regular season. Should for sure get him back by the wild card. So that is great news. I think when you see a player crying, going on a cart, you basically think like, this is it. His season's over. And then you start to think, oh gosh, is this going to linger into next year? It's very late in this season. And he got away pretty scot-free. It sounds like an MCL sprain, an ankle sprain, both not super severe. So I think we're good there. And, we lost a couple other players, but I think players that they can overcome. And this is just kind of the way that the 49ers roll. Down to our third string quarterback. This is what they do. They overcome these injuries, and I don't think this will be any different.
No, it's something they've shown over the years is definitely resiliency. I mean, look how far that team went last year with still dealing with a lot of that stuff. And even in the game, I mean, you could see there was points Trent Williams at the end of the year was limping along like he was, on ice. He was walking like, hey, you just knew, boy, that it's sore there all over the place right now. And they're running Debo 50 carries a game, damn near everyone. So it's definitely been a road you guys have been down. I don't think that makes you guys any less dangerous as far as in playoff contention, or should you get into the playoffs. I would worry a little bit, but with Debo, that even if he does come back, where is he health wise? Because those are always those kind of injuries. They come back and they say, yeah, I got back, but I just wasn't that same ignition switch kind of cat that I was before, where I could stop on a dime and turn it up. I could still kind of go, but can I be as dynamic? Can I be as good? I think you guys have done a good job with the trade we're going to talk about in a second to give yourself some insurance for this very kind of situation. But that is the one worry I'd have with you guys on that with it. On just with and looking from the outside in on that, I was like, oh, he is injured, but then he's coming. Okay, there's some things that have been good though. The other part where you've got Kittle in there, at least he's rolling. He's not. I know he's had some injuries. He's pretty good right now though, right? Kittle's all right at the moment.
Yeah, Kittle, and that's the thing is when with Debo being out, and you're absolutely right, especially with a player like Debo, he's had some weight issues throughout his career, and that was, I think, a lot of that actually probably played into the long-term contract negotiations with the 49ers and whether they're going to bring him back, how much they're going to pay him, because his weight has fluctuated, including this offseason. He came in maybe a little bit thicker than what they would like him to be, but he just started to really work himself into shape. The last two games, that explosion, the explosiveness was back, and now he's injured. So what happens? You're right. I think when he comes back, that's something that they have to worry about. As far as George Kittle, he has been healthy, but he has been non-existent for a big part of this season. You've seen games like the Carolina game and this last game where he was heavily involved in the very beginning. That was the game plan. And then he just completely faded away. And that's kind of what we've seen from George Kittle. I think with Deebo Samuel out, there is no better time than now for George Kittle to show that he's still that elite player, because when I go back and watch him, he's getting open all over the field. The game plan is just not designed for him to be the guy anymore. Now I think is probably the time, especially with a third string quarterback, that tight end can be your safety blanket. I would love for George Kittle to be heavily involved, especially while Deebo Samuel is out.
Yeah. Well, and if you're talking about this matchup coming up this week, that's a place, especially the guy like Jordan Brooks in coverage, you can go after in the Hawks from a defensive standpoint. Absolutely. And I like Kittle a lot. There's a lot of respects at times watching him. I like him more even still. I know Kelsey continues to add on those seasons, but I come back to again, it's just he's not featured as much as Kittle. The injuries are also a part, but the Niners just don't seem to, kind of quite feature him as much as those other tight ends in the game, it seems like at times.
Yeah, they definitely don't. I mean, we definitely have envy watching guys like Kelsey go off every week going, but our guy can do that. I know he can do that. We've seen him do that. He just isn't as involved as what he normally is. And, in years past, we could point to the blocking because he is such a great blocker. This year, he's going out on routes a big chunk of the game. He's just not getting thrown to. It's the strangest thing.
Weird. I mean, and you would think they would angle some of the progression reads towards him on a first and foremost basis before it's just he's read one, then you move off that. But that's also sometimes against, I guess, the coaches love their purified. I can speak to they love their purified ways. Like, no, the progression read is what it is for a reason, and it's not the player's not above that progression read. It goes right to left, left to right. So I'm sure that's probably a little bit of that built in, but. I think it's also a little bit, I think, speaks to the fact your Niners have done a very good job of being universally, they use everybody across the board. Seems like Brandon Ayuk is continuing to start to ascend, slow but surely getting to that place you guys thought he would be at when you took him in the first round. Obviously, Chris McCaffrey, and they're working through. You guys always have a stable of running backs somehow or another that you're going to run through a course of a year that are going to have their share of production. So that might also be a bit of it too, right? That there's just offense is being pretty productive. There's a lot of guys to kind of feed, a lot of mouths to feed, and not necessarily the need to have to work him because you are being so good offensively speaking.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you have weapons galore, there's so much that you can do. But, there's games where I'm watching, it's like C-Mac had a great game, but can't some of that love to go to Kittle? And especially because you want C-Mac to stay healthy. You want these guys to be fresh. It would be nice if Kittle could get involved. But you're right. I mean, it's not like the 49ers are short of weapons. There are all pros all over this offense. And, you know, maybe this week will be his week. Maybe it'll be next week. I don't know. But there's always somebody that has a chance to just go crazy in a game because they are that good and that explosive.
Yeah, it's a underrated offense. You guys are looked at it very heavily for just what you do defensively, but there are guys that are problems in what they bring. Ayuk and his route running and his catch radius. You've got CMC and Debo, which they do kind of similar things each in a lot of respects. But that if you put them both on the field at the same time, I mean, Shanahan, there's no end to the creativity he could employ with those two guys both at the same time. It's also scary for me, by the way, to hear you say that Debo gets faster as we in week 2 had Darrell Taylor with him hemmed up on a fly sweep where they ran the fly sweep at the unblocked edge on that play. Taylor has a free shot at him and a half yard space between him and Debo just runs around him for like a 70-yard touchdown. So do you say that was his fat period? That's pretty disconcerting.
Yeah, he's an incredible athlete. He really is. And it's just that it's funny because you get players and you get people that look at 40 times and that's the end all be all. But man, there's just a physicality and an explosiveness, a short area burst that Debo Samuel brings to the game that, if he can get out on you, he really is. He's like a snowball going downhill and that thing can turn into an avalanche real quick. And he seeks out contact. He's not afraid of it. People make business decisions when Debo's on the field. And that's something that we're going to miss down the stretch for sure.
There is no player like him in the league. I don't, even though I think McCaffrey guy that's kind of close to this, not the same. He's his own kind of unique guy. I don't even know if the league's kind of ever really quite seen a guy like him ever before. So I'd like to see him back. I'd like to see him in injuries. He's fun for your guys' offense and fun for the NFL when he is playing. Let's talk about a little bit of the insurance policy, though, that your Niners bought out on Debo at the trade deadline. And I thought it was a move at first blush where I went, ooh. But at the same point in time, the more I thought about it, you and I have had a lot of discussions, spirited discussions regarding our thoughts on if you are a team that's in that pocket of being an elite team, of being in a go for it mode, then you very well better go for it and damn the torpedoes, damn the draft picks. If you got to do what you got to do to make it happen, you make it happen. And I think at second blush of that, I go, well, it kind of fits into my rule of thumb on that. So I can't really poo-poo this move really in retrospect. And certainly after this Debo, this Debo injury looks even smarter in retrospect. So you guys gave up a future second, third, and fourth round pick. As I understand it, a lot of those picks are considered extra because that weird minority higher draft pick rule.
Yeah,
which is awesome, by the way. Yeah, that's great. Give the Niners free picks. I loved that, Jesse. That was
and they're gonna get more too because our defensive coordinator is going to be gone at the end of the year. DeMeco Ryan's going to get hired somewhere, and so that's just more compensatory picks coming their way. Jimmy Garoppolo will probably get signed by somebody, so send more our way. It's how it works.
Oh yeah, well, maybe get 3-4 year deal, and those quarterbacks get paid so high, it easily could become third, fourth round pick. Fourth round pick probably minimum, and just decent chance of the third if somebody goes crazy on him, and it's like, he's the one. And there's a lot of teams out there needing quarterbacks this offseason. So give me your thoughts. I spoke enough about what were your thoughts on the Christian McCaffrey trade? It comes down the barrel. What's at the forefront of your mind in that moment?
Yeah, what's crazy is the week before it happened, I did a show, and my co-host during that show, we talked about trades and ones that we wanted to see, and he was really big on the CMC trade. And I was fine with it, but it wasn't my favorite. I wanted the 49ers to go get Daron Payne from Washington. And it sounds like they were close at the deadline to making that happen as well, which would have been crazy. But so for me, it wasn't my favorite trade out of everything that was out there. But overall, once it happened, I was definitely excited. I mean, I think Christian McCaffrey being injured, I think that's a little bit overblown. I don't think he's an injury-prone player. I think he's had some bad luck, and I do think there is a difference. I think there are players that are certainly injury-prone, but if you look at him, this is year 6 in the league. He's about to be going through his 4th year without missing a game, knock on wood. So that to me is not injury-prone. That tells me he's had a couple seasons of bad luck, and maybe the Panthers ran him into the ground a little bit too much, and he was the focal point, and things just got unlucky for him. But, man, he came in right away. He came in on a Thursday, played in the Kansas City game, didn't get a lot of burn that game. But the very next game, he comes in and has a hat trick. He throws for a touchdown. He catches a touchdown. He runs for a touchdown. And you see it immediately. The explosiveness, the athleticism, and not only that, but the way that he completely turned around Jimmy Garoppolo's game. Jimmy Garoppolo had never, to that point in his career, gone 3 games without a turnover. As soon as CMC entered the fold, he went 4 straight games without a turnover. I don't think that was by accident. Immediately, he's a check down safety blanket option that allows you to go through your progressions without panicking and knowing that he's going to be open at all times. And I think that helps any quarterback. And especially right now, the 49ers are down to their 3rd string quarterback, Mr. Irrelevant, 7th round, last pick of the draft, and he is playing out of his mind. And I think a lot of that has to do with Christian McCaffrey being there, available, and he's a super freak athletically. I love having CMC on this team. And yes, it hurts. It certainly hurts not having any draft picks. However, I think the 49ers are in a spot where they can absorb that. And after this next year, unlike the Rams, who give up every first round pick in the future, the 49ers have to bite the bullet this year. They'll get a couple compensatory picks. And then going into 2024, they have a full cabinet of picks back. So it's only a 1-year deal where they're just foregoing their picks essentially.
Yeah, and they're going to be picks at the end of the round. Let's also acknowledge that. So it's a second round pick. It's the end of this. It's basically a 3rd round pick, and it's a 4th and it's 5th. I mean, it's really that at the end of the day too. So it's there's not a lot of substantial money. It's I think you're on the hook for like $10-11 million next year, which for the production he gives you, even if it's a production that's 12 games. It was 12 games of McCaffrey, which like you said, the injury. But let's just go okay. Worst case, he'll probably give you that. That's still pretty good production for that price and the all-around game he gives you because you're getting the receiving on top of what you're getting as far as the conventional running back stuff. Again, why I think there's a lot of reasons this deal makes sense. And I've got to say, your Niners are doing right. I want you to go for it, but I don't want to do the Rams go for it stuff. Like with my team in the future when they get to that point, I do want you to be willing to make this kind of equivalent trade. But the Rams have gone completely overboard, and it's just beginning for them because they've got those contracts with so much backloaded guaranteed money that's guaranteed that has to be paid that will inject in at one point or another on these guys. Stafford's already talking about retirement. Oof, it could get a little dark there. There could be a bit of cascading domino situation of retirements there with the Rams.
I don't think either of us feel bad for the Rams, Brandon. Who gives a damn about the Rams? They can eat crap for a couple years.
I'm over here just pumping the gasoline onto the fire. That's all I'm doing, man. I'm just like, I'm like, Jesse, hand me the matchsticks. Hand me the matchsticks, So let's go.
Absolutely. I actually, speaking, since we're on the draft pick conversation, can I tell you the 49ers fans' biggest fears that we're talking about when it comes to the Seattle Seahawks and their future?
What's the biggest fear?
That you trade those picks that you fleeced the Broncos on for Russell Wilson and you go get Lamar Jackson. That is terrifying.
It's not out of the question. And my number one thing I want to do now, especially as we're sitting 2, I don't know if we'll end up 2, 3 is probably one of the 2 places we end up as the overall selections. I do want to do the trade back haul situation, irregardless of what you do with Lamar. I don't think Lamar is a realistic as an option because of the fact he's going to want to be paid so much and he's going to want guaranteed money in that deal. And the Baltimore Ravens are going to want trade assets. If they trade him, I don't think they're just going to let him walk out the door. I think my organization here has gotten with the Russell situation and how much money he commanded over the years. They'll maybe be willing to pay at the quarterback position, but I don't know if they're going to be willing to pay 50, 55 with guaranteed going all the way down the line. I really think that would be something that would be out of character from what they're showing in their approach right now. Now, to their fear of trading back though, because you and I both know, like you guys are, and Trey Lance may prove us out to good. I'm a backer, and we got some quarterback talking to do on this, but I'm a backer of Trey Lance with you on this. But you got to give up a king's ransom to get up there and get those picks. And already right now having 4 picks in the first 2 rounds, one of those almost being a de facto first round because we could be literally picking at the top of the first round at that point. It's I like the thought of trading back 5-6 spots, staying in tier 1, picking up 2 extra first round picks for down the road. I mean, that's how you get down to a dynasty run at that point when you're stacking 7-8 first round picks in the first 2 years. You got all that money cleared up and freed and a pretty good base you're working off of already to begin things. So that should be that's a I'm not a big guy pumping things up, but that's a real fear for the Niner fans because we could end up with that much assets, that much capital. We still have to make the right picks. We're just came in on the heels of our best draft here, maybe in Seahawks history right now.
Great draft. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's working out. It's working out lovely. How I want to talk about, how's your guys' draft? You took the kid out of USC, the defensive end. He was a little young kid. It's going to take some time. Obviously he's got, stack himself up behind the rotation and some of the guys you got. How has he been?
Drake Jackson's been playing extremely well. He's he's got, I think, 6 passes defensed this year. I mean, he's turned into a ball batting machine. And he's in the sparing time that he's played, he's done a really, really good job as far as getting after the quarterback and getting his pressures. And I think there's a lot of promise with Drake Jackson for sure. There's a lot of rotation and a lot of depth on this team. So it's not like they have to rely on him, but you certainly see the development. And Chris Kocurek, for my money, is the best defensive line coach in the league. He's going to get the best out of every single player on that line. And I don't think that Jackson's going to be any different.
Has he whipped out the ghost move yet?
Yeah, he has.
Nice. I thought that was his patented move in college. I was hoping it would translate to the NFL because there's some guys that'll use it here and there, but if he could use it as like he's so good with it that because he's so big and he just gets so low with it when he does it, it stood out on the tape when you were evaluating him out at USC. It's like, whoa, that's interesting.
Yeah, he's and he's a freak athlete, man. The one thing that people don't realize about him, in training camp, he was coming out doing cartwheels and backflips. He's very God. I'm trying to think of who he reminded me of. That's that big and that athletic. Probably like a Jason Pierre-Paul. Remember when he came out, the freak athlete he was?
I remember he was doing backflips and stuff too, I believe. So yeah, that makes sense. They've got similar kind of that freakish length to him a little bit too on their build, like just a big, long, big guy. You feel every bit of their size when they're out there. But thought that was a good pickup for you guys. You were down your first round pick. He was, I thought, pretty good. How was the rest of your draft bearing out this year so far?
Well, I'll tell you, they definitely got some players that are making a difference. Spencer Burford has been playing it, rotating, interestingly enough, at the right guard position with Daniel Brunskill, but he's having a pretty damn good season for a late round pick himself. And right now, the pick that is certainly bearing out is Brock Purdy, pick 262. I mean, without him, who knows where this team would be? And it's very rare that you get a rookie quarterback that comes in to a competitive team and just does what he's doing. He's so poised and you can see the experience. He's confident. He knows where to go with the ball. He's a quick, decisive decision maker, smart kid, athletic. Doesn't have the best arm, but man, he is playing some really good football. And the 49ers have got to be thinking they're lucky stars. I don't know many third quarterbacks on a team that can come in and do the things that Brock Purdy's doing. So I would say this draft so far is panning out pretty well. I think there's definitely some question marks. Ty Davis Price, 3rd round pick. That was one that I was not excited about when they made it. It didn't make any sense to me. They cut last year's 3rd round pick in Sermon, who's now on the Eagles and not doing a lot. That one didn't make a lot of sense to me, and he really hasn't played at all this year. And then Danny Gray is another player that they got who's a burner, probably meant to play with Trey Lance. He really hasn't done a lot this year. So there's been some iffy ones so far, but there have certainly been some difference makers in this draft, no doubt about it.
Where do you stand as far as wanting the Niners to attack the running back room into the future? Because the Niners have been one of those teams that's at the head of the class from an analytics standpoint, saying, well, running backs don't really matter. Find a skill set that works within the context of your offense. In their case, it seems like finding a guy with good speed, great burst, and then whatever else they have is whatever else they kind of have. And that they get by with that. Guys from like Matt Breida to Mostert to go down the line. I mean, even this year, Elijah Mitchell. I mean, you just kind of can go through these lists. And his dad did the same thing in Denver. Denver was the same way. I remember back in the day being an AFC West guy with them playing Denver. Every other year it'd be a new guy, Orlandis Gary. And,
yep.
It was all the names you can go through with it. Do you feel like you've arrived at a spot with what you guys have seen with your running back position that it was time to get a guy like McCaffrey? And even McCaffrey to me doesn't feel like that would pull you guys away from potentially putting some high capital into the position if you wanted to, as again, more of that insurance. Or do you feel like, no, the old way has worked, the Mostert way, the Breida way, the 4th, 5th round and onwards guy, and then just every year kind of taking a guy is the right way?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's clear that when you have an elite player paired with Shanahan, that it's just there's different levels to this. But C-Mac's going to be here for a minute, and all these other guys are really young as well. Elijah Mitchell, he's been banged up, unfortunately, having trouble staying healthy, but he's a really good player. Jordan Mason is a guy that you guys will probably see a pretty heavy load of this Thursday, and look out for him. I'm not saying he's Marshawn Lynch, but we're getting Marshawn Lynch vibes from this kid. He is no joke. He's a bulldozer. He's explosive, looks for contact, big, 230 pounds, very, very fast for his size, shifty. He's a kid that might do something special in this league, especially in this offense. And then, of course, they've got Ty Davis Price, who, like I said, has not really played this year. Third round pick. I don't, for me, it's like you either go heavy, like you're going to do with a CMC, where you just go get the guy that's elite, or you continue taking flyers late, because this middle rounds thing is not working out for the 49ers and their running backs. They've done it 3 times in the Shanahan era, and none of them thus far have panned out. I would avoid it. 5th round pick, undrafted free agent, see who makes the team every single year, get a new guy, and just rotate them through, unless you're going to go make the big trade like they did for CMC.
Yeah, and you can attack it a couple of different ways with it. It doesn't require one or the other either, I suppose. But it does seem, as you mentioned in recent history, you guys at that 3rd round level, it's where people talk about. We have a lot of debate in our fan base about Kenneth Walker pick and was it a good pick or not, or what the value. And I sort of stand and go, yes, you really shouldn't take a running back in the 1st round unless you're getting an Adrian Peterson like complete just freak show where it's not. There's really, those guys are so rare though. But when you're talking about going 2nd round. Now we're talking about getting maybe one of the 1, 2, 3 best running backs in the whole draft, and you've been able to pull that in the 2nd round. And I feel like teams are hip to that, so they've sort of pilfered through the 2nd round those goods, and then you get to that 3rd round point, and now you've actually gotten to almost in sort of a tier 3 kind of place with some of the running backs. And like to your point, if you're in tier 3 already, just pull them back out in round 5, 6, as opposed to in that round 3 territory of things. That kind of
it's the thing is that if you draft a guy in the 3rd round, you expect that guy's going to make an impact on your team. And when he doesn't, you're disappointed. Whereas if you're getting a guy in the 5th round and he pans out, it's all gravy, So it's just about the perception, especially at that position, because the thought is Shanahan can turn anybody into a good running back. That's kind of been true, but at the same time, man, just go late. Get these guys late, keep taking flyers, and figure it out from there. The guys that have panned out have been late round draft picks or undrafted guys. So why would you go away from that and draft these guys in round 3 when you're 0 for 3 in those situations?
It's a good point. Can't argue with it. And again, the success they've had in Shanahan's creativity, and again, it feels like just find the guy at the burst and some speed. And that's even above the hard runner. That's good if you can get it sounds like he's got a guy that's a little bit more fit to that now, but just feels like that's the kind of guy prototype wise that's fit best to make that offense and their ground game, really work. And with knowing McCaffrey and Debo's there in the future, I mean, your guys are going to have so much you'll be able to do to stretch teams laterally out. It may just be the requirement going forward. Those guys can be effective kind of in that fashion, but it's been interesting to watch with you guys, with us giving a little bit more assets. We of course did a 1st round pick on Penny a couple years ago, and now we did a 2nd round pick on Walker. And I think most of us have been pretty happy with it, but it's interesting watching the Niners do a little bit of a different spent that you did go 2nd, 3rd round or 4th rounder for McCaffrey. So kind of same kind of similar, still a recognition that we got to put some value, into the position. You do mention quarterback for the Niner faithful, and I'll tell you what, one of the we have some fun debates on our side of it in Seahawks land. It goes back and forth. I got to say, one of the fun debates to watch amongst the Niner faithful go at it, because you guys for being a family, okay? Families fight now, Jay. Families fight.
Oh, we fight for sure. We fight.
But when it comes to the future quarterback position, or who's the right answer at the quarterback position for the San Francisco 49ers, I don't know if I see a fan base as fiery amongst each other as your Niner fan base is regarding what is right and who's bad and who sucks and who's not the answer. Everybody seems to have an opinion, and everybody seems to be like, you can bury me with this opinion. You can pry it from my cold, dead fingers if you disagree with me. Is that accurate assessment?
That's 100% accurate. And it's funny. You're either a Trey guy or you're not. And if you're not, then it's like, okay, Jimmy's way better and Jimmy gives us the best chance to win. And without Jimmy, thank God he's here. And the moment he goes down, those people go directly on the Brock Purdy train. And they're like, yep, Brock Purdy's the better player than Trey Lance. There is no like, okay, well, all right, Jimmy's hurt, Trey's the future. No, it's straight from Jimmy to Brock Purdy. And we don't like Trey. And then, for us that are big fans of Trey and think that he can do a lot of great things, it's like, hey, Purdy's been a cool story, don't get me wrong, but there's a reason he's a 7th round draft pick. Let's chill out. Can we at least see him do some amazing things when the book's out on him. So there definitely is some infighting with the 49er fan base when it comes to quarterbacks, and it's a lot of fun. It's very interesting. I will say this, with Brock Purdy playing as well as he has, a lot of people are equating that to, well, maybe Trey Lance is done with the 49ers and they should move on from him. But really, to me, Brock Purdy just brings clarity to the Jimmy Garoppolo situation. I think
Bingo.
this is finally the time where it's like, okay, Jimmy, it's been great. We tried to move on from you. It didn't happen. We got you back for cheap, and that was great. You've been an awesome 49er, but the time has come where we've got two players that are 22 years old developing. We're very confident in these two, and we're going to move forward with the two of them and figure it out. Maybe Purdy's the starter, maybe Lance is the starter, but one thing we do know is that it's not your team anymore, and we gotta move on. And I think that's what Purdy's doing right now, is showing that they can probably move on from Jimmy Garoppolo pretty safely.
It's good. It's great for the Niners too in this respect, because you could have hamstrung you to a middle of the road contract for a Jimmy G. And I think we're both of a like mind on this. I would hope there'd be more 49er fans over into the spot of it going, well, Jimmy G's just not. It's always going to play out kind of the same way it does with him. You know what you're going to get. The injury situation is always going to come up at some point or another. And I laughed when they were like, and maybe he can come back this year. I'm like, oh, really? The guy that had former teammates calling him a bitch is going to tough it out later on. That guy's going to come back on the field and tough it out. He is really that guy. I don't think so. No. So I really was kind of hoping with this too, that would happen. And people, those final, the contingent within your fan that were like, oh, Jimmy G, that would go, okay, yeah, no, not Jimmy G. No. And that's good. I think it's great. That's been the best development, I think, for your team beyond the hopeful where you guys want to get to this year, but for your future, because that could have been a hamstring. You got to get Bosa on a new deal, getting Jimmy in there on another 20-year. That would have really pulled everything real tight for you guys across the board at that point with some of the contracts you already have on the books.
Yeah, I agree completely. And now they have, probably not the best quarterback room in the league, but a young, very good quarterback room that's extremely inexpensive.
Yeah, it's ideal because if it's inexpensive, it's got guys that have had seed in the field. You have talent along with, okay, this guy's a functional guy that can probably give us around what Garoppolo gave us for the next 3 years on that cheap rookie deal. And that's especially a guy with Trey Lance who is mobile. And it seems like Shanahan's dead set on having him run power runs up the middle. That one pissed me off. Is not even like, why are you doing that? Why? Just why?
Brandon, I listen, and this is the other thing with the fan base is some people are just so tied to Shanahan. And Shanahan's a really good coach. I'm happy that Shanahan's here. He's the guy that I wanted them to hire. But some people they just won't criticize Shanahan. And, Debo gets injured when running the ball up 21-0. I thought that was a bit of a head scratcher. When it's 2nd down and 8 in the Seahawks game, you're running Trey Lance up the middle. I thought that was a head scratcher, but you can't really criticize Kyle Shanahan without, people showing up to your doorstep with fire on sticks and ready to tear you down, because Shanahan can do no wrong to some people. And it's interesting. It is very, very interesting dynamic. And, my favorite thing that we've heard this year, it's just football. It's football and injuries happen. These are football plays. These are football players doing football things, and football injuries happen. It's like, all right, well, they could be avoided if maybe those football players weren't all turned into running backs, because he did draft one in the 3rd round. He does have a pretty good one that we just talked about in Mason. You went and traded all your picks to go get one, yet you turn your quarterback and your wide receiver into one too. It's like everybody can't play running back on this team. Why would we want them to?
I don't get it either. In Debo's case too, you pay him that money, then you want to start load balancing it because you want him to play through the course of that contract. You don't want a torn ACL that then nukes him in what he is, especially with what he needs, which is that burst, which is kind of the beginning of the skill set on top of the other things he brings. And I was surprised that occurred with him as well after McCaffrey. I thought they'd do a little bit more featuring. You're right, 21-0. That game in Lance, you were moving up the field. You were on the Seahawks side of the field when the injury occurred. It wasn't like he wasn't doing other things to get them up the football field, but it drove me crazy. Develop the young quarterback. Put him in position to succeed. Don't use him like a running back. And then that's, it's a shocker it happens, or it's a shocker Debo gets injured. Well, I'm sure you were in the same boat along with a lot let's not use this guy this much. We're gonna take years off this guy's career if we keep just overusing him like this. And those coaches get so hard headed about stuff, man, where they just will not pivot at times when things seem so obvious. You need to pivot off this just a little bit. You can still use him. You still use your new shite briny toy. Just don't take it out at every turn. That's all we're asking.
And that's exactly it. I'm not saying don't run Debo. I'm not saying don't run Trey, but pick and choose. 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, 3rd and goal, 4th and goal. You're inside the 1 yard line. That's when you do the QB power. Things, as weird as it sounds, when things are crowded up and players know what's coming, it's usually less injuries happen in those situations. It's when you try to get fancy and get in the open field, and all of a sudden you got somebody flying at your knee from the side that you didn't expect because he came from 7 yards away. When you're down near the goal line or it's 4th and 1 and everybody knows what's coming, usually players tend to stay a lot safer in those situations. So that's when I would want to see Trey Lance run. And oh, by the way, he is athletic. So there's going to be times when he drops back that he's just going to tuck it and run anyways. You don't have to design 10, 12 designed runs for him every single game to use his legs. He's going to do it naturally. So it's just about the time. It's when you're up 21-0, probably not the time to run Debo. That's just my thought. When you're 2nd and 8 in the middle of a game that you're winning that's early on, probably not the time to run your future quarterback. But, it is what it is.
It is. I mean, he did it. And I those in between the tackle box. I mean, that's where the running backs tell you too. When I'm going between those, that's where I can't see the hits. Because you have to get through that hole fast. It's only there for a second. So you don't get to see what's coming this way or that way with the helmet. It's kind of like blinders, and it's where those are the hardest hits you take. And it is what hit him there. And maybe Shanahan will learn that in next year, not to run him. So I like running him too, but get him the edges where he can see what's coming. Get him on a bootleg where he's got a throw option that he can run for a couple yards if it's not there. Don't run right up the middle on a just keeper. Ooh, that one was just you go, oh, that was not good. I'm behind on my donos here a little bit. Let me just catch up real quick. Megan, thank you for the $10 donation. Sorry, I'm a little late on acknowledging it, but it's good to see you in the house. Says still a little upset about yesterday, and I'm not sure I should admit this as a 12, but when I was younger and before I knew what an awesome team the Hawks were, I was a 49er fan in the Montana days. Well, those were pretty good days, weren't they, Jay? So kind of understandable.
Yeah, they definitely were. And Megan, I think this happens a lot, especially if you were really young. What happens is you see a team on TV all the time nationally because that's what is force fed to you if they're really good like the Niners were in the 80s. And that's probably what happened. You probably were so young you didn't even know a team like the Seahawks existed. I'll give you an example. Being from Oregon, I'm an Oregon Duck fan for sure, but when I was really young, it was always Florida and Florida State that were on TV. I didn't even know Oregon was a thing when I'm 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. And so I was a Florida State guy. That's the team that I always saw on TV. That's who I rooted for. Then I got a little bit older and realized, okay, well, there's a local team and you start to naturally root for them. So totally understand it, Megan. Even if the other 12s don't, we will take you back. We'll definitely take you back.
She's ours. You can't have her. Don't stop. I just see what you try to do there, Jay. Don't you do that. No. Don't let him talk. Don't you let him. He's going to speak that voodoo 49er magic in here, Megan. Mute. You got to mute it. Dell is the fittest. And thank you, Megan, for the $10 dono. Dell is the fittest with a $2 dono. Says love last second with Grant as a Seattle fan.
Hey, I appreciate you tapping in. Yeah, Grant Cohn, man, he's pure entertainment, and he's like top dog over in 49er land. The man's approaching 60,000 subs, and he and I do a weekly show together. He's a funny guy and certainly entertaining. It doesn't surprise me that there are other people from other fan bases that tune in just to watch Grant Cohn.
I saw him last week. He's always in the fight, in some kind of fight, man. He's going at it. Him and Brett Coleman last week were going at it on Twitter. Yeah. It was getting raw. I was like, these guys. That escalated quickly. I was trying to go find that meme and post it in the Twitter thing that was going back and forth between them because it was.
Oh man, I mean, earlier in the year it was him and Pat McAfee. I mean, listen, the rule is always this: if you're gonna punch up. You don't punch down. And Grant's got a big following, but you're talking about the top of the top when it comes to the YouTube game. if you're gonna punch, you might as well punch up at those guys and get a little recognition from it.
Hey, yeah, I can't hate the game. I know how it goes, man. I know the hustle. So he's he's doing what he's got to do, and he's got his growth's been amazing. He's done a great job over there. So, yeah, good stuff that they're doing. You guys are doing awesome show on that side of it, man. You guys keep juice. You're gonna be blowing up here, no doubt. As you guys, you had the best growth this year, haven't you? You've been.
I've had some good growth. Yeah, nothing to scoff at for sure. Certainly gotten a love on a last couple of videos that I've been throwing out. You're starting to see the growth coming through pretty rapidly. So it's been an exciting year over at Last Second Sports for sure. Definitely blessed and love everybody that tunes in and checks me out week in and week out.
It helps you get past that 6K markish. It starts to, the algorithm starts to give you a little better bumps. It seems like
it does
kind of kick in just a tiny bit. Dell, thank you though for that dono. The Snail, thank you for the $5 donation. Appreciate you. Says Brock Purdy has been the best quarterback on the 49ers roster all year. They're my Super Bowl favorite right now. Ooh.
Hey, we'll take it. I would love to be a Super Bowl favorite. And I would agree. I would have to say that this year, Brock Purdy has been the best quarterback thus far. I mean, he's played very good. The offense has been able to put up, the team's been able to put up 30-plus points in consecutive weeks, which has not been a thing. The offense has sputtered a little bit. Trey Lance played in the monsoon game and then got hurt early week 2. Jimmy Garoppolo's been up and down. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think that it's really out of the realm of possibility to say that. Can he keep it up? That's the question. When the book is out on him and the league knows what's coming, does he continue at this high level? But as of right now, yes, Brock Purdy's playing at an extremely high level. And if he can keep it up, then yeah, I mean, the 49ers certainly could be a favorite for sure out of the NFC.
Where was Garoppolo at as far as his recent performance for the Niners this year versus where he's been in the past as far as performance-wise?
Very similar, a little bit more efficient. The interceptions were definitely down. He's a guy that throws a lot of boneheaded picks, but as we talked a little bit earlier, had gone 4 straight games without throwing an interception. The touchdowns weren't anything to brag about. The yardage, the short passes. I mean, he was the exact same player, but limiting the turnovers. Mm-hmm. He was a guy who was still going to play within a tennis court on the field. I'm going to 10 yards each way and 10 yards downfield. That's where I'm throwing the ball. But it was working out for him. As soon as CMC came in, it was like, wow, this guy's a lot more efficient. I think a lot of people were starting to believe like, okay, maybe he's kind of changed a little bit and he's flipped that page and he could be efficient and not be a complete dumpster fire in the playoffs. Unfortunately, we're not going to find out, but Brock Purdy's playing pretty damn well.
Yeah. I oddly, with me, I'd almost trust Brock just because I feel like, again, I know with Jimmy, it seems like he's one of those guys to me, just as he gets colder, as the elements come in more into play too, that arm just seems to get slider and slider and slider, where and it's warm, it's kind of loose and he can kind of get a little bit of oomph on it, but then it just kind of really, really loses it's like watching Matt Ryan outside trying to throw a ball sometimes, when he leaves the dome where you're just like, oh boy, he's really having a hard time pushing this thing up the football field, like at all. But that's good. That's interesting to hear that Jimmy was kind of in the same kind of spot. And boy, you guys landed on Purdy like you have. Boy, what a godsend it's been. Is he going to play this week?
Yeah, he's got the oblique injury. It sounds like he's day to day. It happened on the second play of the game and he stayed in. They took him out in the fourth quarter, not because he couldn't play, but because the game was just out of hand. I have a hard time believing he's not going to play. So certainly, I mean, an oblique injury can affect his throwing, no doubt about it. But I think he's going to play, and he'll play fine.
They'll give him a shot. He'll get the shot in his arm. He won't feel it.
Exactly.
He's a gamer. He's a gamer. He'll put him online. Thank you, though, Snail. Appreciate you on the dono, man. Kevin Mullen with a $5 donation. Thank you so much, Kevin. It says versus Tampa Bay, San Francisco ran 23 times for 122 yards to the left side of center, of a total 36 for 206 yards with 3.41 yards after contact per ATT. Talk about KS's game versus Tampa Bay's rush defense and what plays.
Yeah, I mean, there's no difference here in what Shanahan's doing. Like, exactly what's coming. First of all, running left makes a lot of sense. You have the best left tackle in the game. So you get these guys out in open space, allow them to make the quick cutbacks, good decisions. That's what you're going to see. And that's what happened in this game. I mean, Tampa Bay traditionally has been a team over the last few years that has completely shut down the run.
I
This
can
year, I
attest to
believe they
that.
were ranked 18th going into that game. So yeah, you're going to get some of that zone gap scheme that you see from Shanahan. You're going to see some of those tosses, the cutbacks, and really right now, what you're seeing from all of these running backs is they have very good vision. Elijah Mitchell, even last year, as good as he was, his vision early on was kind of in question. You're not going to see that with CMC. You're talking about a veteran here. He knows exactly what to do with the football. Mason is a one cut and go guy. He's looking to punish defenders. So yeah, right now you're seeing some very decisive decision making. And again, things get very easy when you've got Trent Williams out there on the left side. Just run it behind him. You know that you're going to be successful. And the 49ers are going to probably try to continue that again this week.
How has been the success going to the right side? Is it definitely that you're left heavy and that's where the money's made, or is it the right side does just about as well or close to?
Yeah, I mean, the left side is certainly going to be where the bread is buttered, no doubt about it. But they can run all over the field. I mean, especially in what you're seeing a lot, especially late in these games, as defenses are starting to get tired. You're starting to see these tosses, and it's either Christian McCaffrey or Mason are taking the toss, and then they're cutting back inside for these wide open lanes and picking up 30 yards a clip. And that's really what's kind of been the dagger for some of these teams down the stretch. And it seems like the last 3 weeks, you're seeing it like clockwork. Fourth quarter, teams know that they need to stop the run. All of a sudden, we get a toss play, a cutback, and we're breaking it for 30. And that's tough when you're starting to see that in the fourth quarter when we're starting to wear on you. So yeah, they certainly can run it left or right, but going to be more effective running behind the best left tackle in the game for sure.
Yeah, it seems this has been a big problem with our Hawk team this year is that we can relatively hold on with the running game, but teams have gotten the blueprint on us now that if they just keep hammering the running game with us, it's just like chopping wood. Yeah, you're not going to break through in the first couple of cuts, but you just keep banging and banging, and then you get to the fourth quarter, and those runs do open up. And it happened this last week. It happened to us in the Raiders game where Jacobs busted off the one in OT. The team just wears out. It doesn't matter. We have some depth. We have some rotations coming through, but it just seems kind of like the bottom line is, Jay, if you get to 35, 40 carries from an offensive standpoint of things, kind of doesn't matter how well the defense has done up in that point of stopping those other runs to keep you where they're at. If you get that many runs, that many carries on the board on a game, you're going to break the defense's back. When I say more often than not, it's probably like 80, 85% clip if I get 35, 40 carries in a running game, right? I'm probably going to take that. That's a win for me probably.
Yeah, 100%. And that's a question that I have for you guys because I feel like Seattle going into the season, it was one of those things where everybody's kind of joking, like, all right, it's going to be a 2-team race. Maybe Arizona can get into it, but Seattle, nobody has to worry about. And then they beat Denver, and I was like, okay, well, I get it. Russell Wilson, whatever. The 49ers kind of spank him in week 2, and we think we have Seattle figured out, and that was not at all the case. You look at what Seattle's been able to do going on this run. Now, the last couple of weeks, I feel like they're starting to come back a little bit, maybe a little bit closer to what we thought they were going to be. But is that it? Because I feel like the offense has been holding up there into the bargain, and now the defense is just starting to slow down a little bit. Is that really what we've seen the last couple of weeks?
Well, you and I are going to get into a little bit here of defense because I really want to understand a little bit about what the Niners have done defensively from a schematic background here and what they've done. And when I track back the defense this year, they were supposed to adopt the Vic Fangio cover 2 shell defense that's been the du jour of the NFL lately. And that was what was supposed to happen this season. And instead, what they've essentially done is they've gone from the 4-3 under defense to the 3-4 under defense, but they've remained with the same coverages on the back end for the most part. Maybe they're sprinkling in a little cover 4 along with their traditional cover 2, cover 3 stuff. But it's not like they're being super exotic and man match principles or like with Fangio's defense, you usually see some pressure based looks, right? A little bit more blitzing. The blitzing has still been its very bargain basement low level of Carroll's time here. And so what he's tried to do essentially is build an amalgamation between his old defense and the new, and you're not getting any of the returns from kind of either of it. And so, I mean, there's this weird front that they run out, Jesse, which is we've called it the 2-man front, a weird 4-man front, where they take their 2 defensive tackles, put them essentially right next to each other over where we got the guard. They're really tight. And then you've got your outside linebackers rocking the wide 9 technique. So there's a ton of distance between where you have your defensive tackles to the outside linebackers on both sides of the line of scrimmage. Huge. And you can, it's like 2 men's size of hole right there naturally. This leads your outside linebackers to having to crash in or set the edge out wide. And they're damned if they do, damned if they don't, because they set it wide, they force the play in, but there's a huge hole inside because the defensive tackle can't get to close all that hole. They can go to either side, so you can't weight it to one edge or the other, right? You can't put an extra man down there. And even an eighth man in the box sometimes doesn't matter when you run that kind of front, as opposed to a traditional 4-man where you might have the Leo out as the wide 9, then you got your 1 tech, then you got your 3 tech, then you got your 5 tech. But it's all based in principle at that point to give you bodies on the line of scrimmage, to keep your linebackers clear, to help you if you want to do some 2 gapping stuff, to keep your gap integrity. I mean, you talk about the cutback lanes, that's all gap integrity stuff. And when you get tired, that's the first thing you're going to lose is your gap integrity, especially as you have to get lateral and move your big fat butt down the line of scrimmage to get to that spot to where you need to go. But that's where the big part of the issues have come from. They also aren't doing well with the 3-4. They don't have the right personnel. We're obviously talent deprived a little bit too. So it's like all of this stuff goes into the bag. But to me, it's been the lack of adaptation. You know, Jay, last year we brought in a new offense. We didn't fully implement it. We talked about that last year, that we're still doing too much of the old. You finally adopted this year. You finally went, okay, Carroll went, all right, let's see what this McVay thing can do. That's why you've had the success this year. He's done the same thing where he's made the change defensively, but he's not quite been willing to kind of relinquish the old fully with it. He still kind of wants to hold on to that old, and it's holding us back, and specifically it's stopping us in the run game because the 4-man front isn't working. You don't run pressure base. You don't run a lot of stuff up there to make offenses uncomfortable, which makes them feel like they can kind of do whatever they want. And really your matchup this week for us is the worst kind of matchup for us, a team that will stay dedicated to the run, a team that will come off those bootlegs and challenge us, and our linebacker is going to want to bite it on the run, so the bootlegs come out wide and that tight end leaks to the flat. That's going to be open all day for you guys. I mean, go watch the tape of this last game. It was just all day leaking out to the right. And we didn't force Sam Darnold to push the ball up the field at all against us. It really makes this a tough matchup this upcoming week. It doesn't give me a lot of hope for this team right now into this season's future. Yes, we got to get more talent, Jesse, but I'm really worried schematically about what we're trying to do and accomplish, and I don't know how it exactly works. I don't see the vision at play.
Do you think if Jamal Adams was playing that he could make up for some of that, and that, you know, the scheme was built with him in mind and they just didn't adapt after he was going out? Or do you think that, hey, even if he was in, that we'd still be getting gashed a little bit with this design that they have?
Part of me feels like it's a sort of a yes and a yes, lack of mutually exclusive, both things being true. I think Carroll, having Jamal Adams, you have a top 3 run defending safety in the league. Say what you want about where he is coverage skill wise, but he's a top 3 run defending strong safety in this league, at least in that skill set. That would have helped this team out. It would have. But Ryan Neal's kind of been balling out for about the last 5 weeks for us. You had some struggles after he first left, but he's been fine in respect of doing good and run defenses. He can. Some of it's more of your front 7 stuff than it is the safety help coming up. I feel like there's even times you're running 8-man fronts and it doesn't do a whole lot. I do think to your point though, that the season started out with them thinking they would do more of the pressure stuff, because that's what goes with hand in hand with the Fangio stuff. It's exotic, it's myriad. They show you the cover 2, but then they snap out of it post snap more often than not. It can be all over the place. It can send coverages in every different direction, but you're going to get blitzes. You're going to get more of a pressure-based look. I think that got tossed out with Jamal because his skill set and what he applied as that pressure-based defensive back is so unique. With that said, though, to me, I think it's silly that their backup plan was if Jamal Adams, this guy who's been heavily injury prone since we've walked in the door, he's had about 10 injuries with us, that we're going to count on all of this to roll. And if this goes down, we have no backup option to be able to run our scheme pure. I don't know a lot of schemes in the league that you go, okay, shut our whole scheme down when we lose one player. All that stuff goes out the door and they've reverted back all to the old because of it, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of Vic Fangio, there's an off chance that he might be our defensive coordinator next year. So he's been in the building. He's been around. He's been helping D'Amico Ryans with this cover 6 scheme that they've been running. And we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening if D'Amico gets a job. But there's an outside chance that Vic Fangio might be the guy.
Well, this opens the door on that. I want to walk through because so let's go through the evolution of this. You had Robert Saleh there. And with Robert Saleh, the main injunction, it seemed like what he did is he really adopted the wide 9 technique there for the defensive line, which is still keeping a lot of the zone principles. And then we were talking last year, and there was going to be more of a change with Saleh leaving from your standpoint of we're going to go to a little bit more man. We got the front 4 that can get up there. We can squeeze some stuff through the middle of the field. We got the outside corners. Maybe they can run a little bit more man like Verrett. Didn't seem like that fully came to being in talking to you earlier this year. Where is this defense at and how they get their job done from a schematical basis?
A lot of the same of what we've seen. I mean, you're still going to see a lot of cover three in there as well. The one thing that the 49ers have done a good job of, in my opinion, is disguising everything. Everything looks the same. They do a great job of rolling coverages post snap, which has confused a lot of players. I mean, they'll show a two deep shell and turn it into cover one or cover three. They'll show a one shell and turn it into cover six or cover four or cover two. I mean, they really are not discriminating against any coverage. They are playing all of them and rotating them in nicely. I do think that in their base, cover three, believe it or not, is still probably the dominant Ran defense, especially in third down situations. But they will mix in a little bit of everything. And the way that they're rotating through that and mixing in, I mean, just because it's cover three doesn't mean you have the same principles. You're seeing a lot of players carrying their man across field. So depending on if they've got a crosser or not, you'll see a player stick with it. And so that can confuse quarterbacks. They're looking at it going, okay, are we in one man or are we pressing here and cover one? And okay, I see him carrying, so it looks like man. And then all of a sudden I think I should have this open over here. Nope, they were in cover three. It was a cover three buzz and I was completely thrown off. So there's so many different things that the 49ers are doing schematically. But the biggest thing that they are doing is just disguising things so damn well pre-snap and then rotating post-snap. And I think no matter how good you are, it can confuse people. And even Tom Brady fell trap to that last week, getting two picks that were pretty uncharacteristic. The one thing about Tom Brady this year is he really has not turned the ball over a lot. So to get him twice last week was pretty damn impressive. And, the other thing too is, unlike Seattle, it sounds like you guys have some good players, some good young players. And I think that defense is going to grow. But the 49ers have elite players up and down this defense, and they can really make any scheme work if they want to. And man, they are showing it. It doesn't matter what you want to do or what you think you bring to the table. If we need to run man, we can run man. If we need to run two, we can 2, 4, 6, 1, 3, all of it. And they're elite at everything because they have linebackers that can cover. They have safeties that can cover. They finally have a number one corner for the first time in the Shanahan era. And then you've got that elite pass rush that is going to make a clock short for any quarterback. Man, they can do it all, and they do it all.
Yeah. And I think that the thing that you mentioned, the exotic aspect, that's the part that you've come from the designs of Saleh where the change is undertaken with the Niners. Okay, so you haven't gone man concepts. So maybe we could say the main change where you guys have gone through is that Saleh's defense coming back from Carroll's edge. It's not about being exotic. It's not about showing you different things. You might see cover three, and you're probably going to see cover three post snap. So that's where really, to me, the change comes over for you guys in how you've done it. And I do think a cover three defense, even if you're running that predominantly or going to cover twos and you've got that, just those are your only two coverages, that can even work. If I got Nick Bosa and Eric Armstead up front, and I've got a little bit of the talent base, that's the problem that we've attacked with it at times, including this year, Jay, is that we don't want to blitz, but we don't have the front four to get the pressure consistently. And so we keep relying on that year in, year out without actually beefing up enough of that defensive line. I think that's what also makes it hard for people when they look at our defense and they go, well, no, it's just more talented line. That's all we need. And I go, well, that's part of it. But also has to be part of it is that, like you mentioned, the exotic. I need to make quarterbacks think in this day and age. I can't toss away advantages, built-in advantages that are easy enough to put into my defense or offense. Like there's two things you guys do with that. It's like that exotic defensively, it's the pre-snap motion stuff. It's like we don't do as much pre-snap motion. We're getting better at it this year, but that's been a big bedrock of Shanahan. As he gets you pre-snap motion going one way, he pulls those linebackers just one step out of their gap to the side as they carry that fly sweep band, and then he runs it back the other way, and he'll pull linemen back across the other direction, and he's got you hit. Your guys are one step out of position. He's got an extra blocker to that side of the field, a fast running back. He's gone city. So it all works together. Like it makes sense. But we put these built-in advantages up on the table sometimes. Go, no, we don't want to do that. No fly sweeps. Those are overrated.
Well, and I think that's it. And that's where Shanahan's offense is really predicated, is on that pre-snap motion, because it does a couple of things. One, it's going to give the quarterback an advantage. All right. Now I can see most likely, hey, you're probably in man or you're in zone. Okay, great. We're starting to see, because once you get motion, you're going to start to see those rotations. You're like, okay, now we know pretty much what's about to come. So now my quarterback has an advantage. And then to your point, you get, and especially with Debo and C-Mac, I mean, you're seeing a lot of the same plays ran over and over where you put them both in the backfield, you shift one, you throw one out in motion, all of a sudden he turns into a receiver and you start to see those linebackers rotate. All right, well, now I've got Ayuk on a slant coming right behind where that linebacker just
Yeah.
was, and this is an easy bang, bang play. I'm picking up 7 yards without even batting an eye, and that's what Shanahan's been so great at, man. Just those slight, all it takes is one step left or right, and we got you. We know exactly
Right.
what we want to do, and we can run that play out of multiple formations all game long, and there's not a lot that you're going to be able to do about it.
No, and both linebackers pull on a string, folks. So when you've got a Samuel comes across, you see the linebackers go like this, or McCaffrey
Mhm.
come across, they go like this. And he's absolutely right. That one extra step is the leverage step you lose. And some guys, if they're slow, they don't trust themselves. They'll get the extra step. They'll do a little pitter patter, get a little bit further to that one side, which just draws it that much back to the backside of the formation when they attack. Especially when you're talking about going left, because that tends to be the backside of the formation, because your strong side does tend to be to the right. And so that's where that stuff just opens up so wide for them. But again, it's those straight. This is where the game's going, is the pre-snap motion. This is where the game is going, being exotic in your secondary looks, being multiple, being able to throw a variety of different things out at the offense and make them confused in that respect. You can't get to Brady by blitzing him. You can't confuse him in that way. He's seen every blitz. He's been there. He's done that. You ain't getting him that way. But you can sure as hell still confuse him with some coverages. That's
Yeah,
possible.
and that's exactly what happened. Oddly enough, I don't even think they sacked Brady. I'd have to go look at the numbers. I don't remember one sack on 50 plus dropbacks,
Mhm.
but they got those interceptions, and that's pretty rare to come from Tom Brady.
It is. You're doing something right if you get him throwing picks at this point. The guy has definitely mastered the game as far as how to, be careful with the ball and not make stupid errors with it. And so, it's and not doing it with pressure, I think is even more impressive to kind of do without the pressure. Speaks to then you doing that confusing stuff on the back end and making him think. And to get a guy like Don Brady outthink him, I think that's definitely, again, just more proof in the pudding to me, Jay, that this is the way to go defensively. I hope we're taking that step in the direction, man, but with just, we're not fully kind of taking the full step. We're kind of baby stepping it a little bit, which is frustrating because you're just like, go the whole way, go all the way.
Well, listen, I mean, Seattle revolutionized the defense that you guys ran with all those great players and Chancellor and Thomas and Sherman, and it was fantastic and it did its thing. But man, it's time to move on. And if you're going to continue to hang on to those principles 10, 12 years later, the league's moved on. And it's crazy because really this cover two shell principle really started to make its way. It's the test was actually Patrick Mahomes 2 years ago. If you go look and see what Tampa did to him in the Super Bowl and early on in that year, he was struggling. And that's because that was like the one quarterback that was facing cover two a
Mhm.
lot. And the rest of the league was still kind of in this one high look. But when they played Patrick Mahomes, like, okay, we're doing it too high. We're keeping everything in front of us. And Patrick Mahomes struggled early on with that, picked it up throughout the season. Then, they go to the Super Bowl, he gets shellacked, and that's what they ran. Well, the next year it comes into more adoption. And Patrick Mahomes, because he saw it a year early, is ahead of the game. And so now it's almost like Patrick Mahomes is going to continue to be the test case, and you're going to have to figure things out. And that's going to be probably the new mold in 5 years. Whatever you can do to
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes and get him off of his mark, that's what's going to be the next wave, whatever it is. But, right now, that's what it is. It's that too deep look. And, if you're not mixing it in or running it, then you're behind. You're definitely behind what's happening in the NFL. And I don't think that it's any surprise that scoring's been down for 2 straight years because the league just hasn't caught up yet, not offensively.
No, I don't think so either. And because it offers a lot of multiplicity to it too, right? It's not as locked in as like a cover three is, where you have a lot of off coverage with the corners. You know who your single high safety is going to be, your free safety. You can really pinpoint things. Harder to pinpoint in this defense, which may allow it to have, to your point, on that, a little bit of an elongated time period of having it sort of say and day and what. But you're right about the fact defenses move on fast in this league. Offenses move fast. Things are constantly. This is the beauty of the sport, is it doesn't remain stagnant. How long did the 85 Bears defense last? I mean, what did that have a shelf life? And that's one of the great defenses of all time. But what did it have? 7 years, 8 years
Yeah.
before you got into the early 90s and it was
Yeah.
done? I
Yeah.
mean, this is how this goes basically. And so I wish we would take those steps forward, especially this last week, Jay. It was on bright display. It has been this way the last couple of weeks, frankly. And we had a run for 4 weeks of good, but it was playing kind of some lesser opponents and teams that were a little challenged, I think, offensively. it's definitely, as we look into the future beyond this year for us, I think the big thing that we need to see turn for us to have any hopeful future success as a franchise is that the defense can start to, Carroll can get a little bit more relinquishing of the old and bringing on a little bit more of the new, like you guys have done. Because you aren't, like I said, you haven't, Robert Saleh had you guys playing fantastic league best defense, Super Bowl run defense. Would have been very easy for that Niner squad at that point, even when Saleh left, to say, okay, let's bring an acolyte of Saleh or acolyte of Carroll, have him run the thing. We got the front four to run the pressure, but Shanahan or be it the general manager at that point was a little more forward thinking in that of, no, that's not about where it is now. It's where is it going? That's what we got to be looking towards.
Yep. 100%.
And the hell with you guys if you hire Fangio. That's all I'm going to stand up. Okay. That's it. That's all I'm going to say. Scary 11 with a $2 donation says Niners 63, Seahawks 0. Wow. Let's go.
Man, that's a lot of confidence. It's funny because I threw out a tweet that was completely joking, but I was like, listen, the Seahawks are turning into who we thought they were. The 49ers are turning into who we thought they were. 49ers by 50. And people were mad. Like I was serious. It's like, no, dude, I'm totally joking. This is going to be a tight game. It's always tight in division, especially Thursday night game. No Deebo Samuel. Seattle's going to give us a run for our money probably here. So I definitely expect a closer game than last week. But yeah, people are, don't jinx us. What are you doing?
It's on you, Jay. You'll have your chat.
As if I have the power to do that.
You did this. Somebody throwing you the memes and the pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Look, there's normally, I'm a big poo-poo guy on other fans going, we're going to roll you through. I can kind of get where Niner fans coming through saying, no, this is a 3-4 touchdown game. Hell, my own chat was saying it after the last game too, and it is partially joking. It's partially like, well, how do we stop them? I mean, you've got offenses, Tom Brady comes in with the Buccaneers into Germany 4 weeks ago, man, is the worst rushing offense in the league. And we turned Leonard Fournette into Jim Brown. We made Rachaad White look like the best running back in this last draft. And it's a weekly basis thing. Every week there's a new guy setting a personal best this year as far as a rushing mark goes. So it's kind of like every week we're like, oh, it's your turn now. Now it's your turn. And it feels like this might be that week with the Niners so good as far as rushing and us being so undisciplined. And again, the blueprint's there, Jay. I mean, you just keep hammering it, even if you're not successful with the first, second quarter. By the end of that third quarter, fourth quarter, you'll have the guys wore down. And I don't know what we can do to adjust it. It's not like I can say, well, we're injured, man. We don't have, we're down Harris last week, but we've got basically everybody on that line. I mean, you're compared to you guys health wise, we're doing great. We're you guys are an infirmary unit and we're kind of out on the beach, but just sometimes you don't have enough guns, man. You don't have enough guns.
And that's, I think your strategy of trading back and getting more picks might be the way to go. You guys can go get a lot of players. I think it really comes down to, do you believe in any of these quarterbacks coming out? Can you realistically go get one? And what are the thoughts on Geno Smith? And once you've got that kind of figured out, it's like, all right, well, if we're cool with Geno or we don't believe in these quarterbacks or we don't think we can get one, trading back and just going and collecting all the talent in the world is not a bad idea.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see if you think this thought lines up, because you don't have a dog in the fight. So, definitely get an unbiased opinion. But the thought process from my standpoint on this is that you do sign Geno. I don't think he's going to cost what some people are talking as far as 35, 40 million. I'd also like to see if you agree with this. I think that when you'd have the franchise tag at 31.5 million next year, the guy's not going to sign more than what the franchise tag is on that 1-year deal, or the team just puts him on the 1-year deal on the franchise and says, you're being unrealistic, plan 31.5 on a 1-year commitment. So I look at it as a deal where he comes in half that of guys that are the big paid guys in the market. And I'm talking the top 10 guys. He comes in about half average per year, right around, kind of even kind of less than the Garoppolo contract costed you guys at the time, because the numbers, the last year, the number was okay, but it was kind of costly at the time. So even kind of a better than the Garoppolo deal you signed a couple of years ago in today's dollars. Reason I think this is the smart approach is because I think my team's closer than we thought at the start of the year. I'm not saying we're elite now, but with the picks we have coming, with the money that we're going to have rolling off the books, we're dealing with $44 million of dead money this year, Jay. We've lost 20% of our cap is to Bobby Wagner, Russell Wilson, Carlos Dunlap. It's gone, just blown to the wind. We're going to get that back next year. I think being that that's the case, we've had this great turn of fate that you take advantage of that and strike right now if the striking's good. If we were a little bit further behind the ball, I might go, I'll hold off on Geno. The other thing is I've asked you a lot of questions on this, so I'm going to give you a bunch here. I'm not a big fan of these quarterbacks in this class. So I'd love to see your thoughts on that, as well as where your early assessment's been. I know you probably haven't looked at them as close because you got your guys, but that's sort of where I land on it. What do you think on that as an outsider kind of looking in with that?
Yeah, it's tough because and I haven't put a lot into these quarterbacks. Normally I actually geek out on quarterbacks, and I may even do it this year just because I really do like to pick, all right, which one of these guys is going to be good, and I take pride in being right in those things. But if they're, regardless of who the player is, if there's a player that they fall in love with that they think could be the guy, I'm always my thought process is always, you're not going to be in this situation often. It's the same thing that I thought with the Giants when they had Eli Manning and he was going to those final years. I think it was the Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, Rosen, Darnold draft, Lamar. Obviously, only a couple of those guys panned out, and it's always a crapshoot. But I feel like if you're in a situation where you have the picks to go make a move and you think that franchise guy is there, that you always pull the trigger because you don't know when you're going to be there again. Geno's fine, but Geno's like a Goff or a Jimmy G, maybe slightly better, but same type of player where it's like, okay, I can win with this guy, but can I win with this guy is the question. And if the answer is most likely no, keep him around, let him bridge to the next guy. Go get your guy, spend the 40 million plus that you're going to have in free agency or that you're going to get back. You're still going to have other future good picks that you can make things shake with. I don't know, man. I feel like if you can go get the guy that you think is the quarterback for the future, you absolutely do that. But if you don't think that guy's here or you don't think that you can get him, then 100% trade back, get more assets, and maybe you can make things shake next year and try it again then. But man, if that guy's out there and you believe that you found your one, I don't think you ever pass on a franchise quarterback or a guy that you think can be the franchise.
Well, and you mentioned guys like Goff or Garoppolo and being even a minor upgrade. I would argue that he's a major upgrade over both of those two guys. I think Goff's a little guy that gets knocked a bit too much. He's actually a fine, and maybe that's a little closer in the mark, but
definitely over Garoppolo. Let me clear things up.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't have thrown Garoppolo in there because I think Goff does get slighted. I think he's done some good things.
Oh, yeah.
This is a guy who made a Pro Bowl. This is a guy who went head to head with Patrick Mahomes in a game. I mean, he can make all the throws. He's a little bit goofy and whatever, but Goff gets a bad rap. I think he's pretty decent. So let's take Garoppolo out of there because I think that might make you change your mind.
And I guess it's part of it too is a little bit of I think the Geno Smith season he's having is a little underappreciated from a national perspective. And the reason I say that is if you take any statistical category that you want to utilize for the quarterback position, he is top 5 in every single one, Jay. From passing yards, quarterback rating, QBR, average per attempt. If you want to grab CPOE as one of your advanced analytical stats, top 5 in that as well. There's no marker by which that you can measure the quarterback position. He's not top 5 this season. Does that mean he's top 5 going into the future? Well, I don't know, but I also think that once you get this far into the season, a guy's playing a top 5 quarterback play, that goes beyond game manager. And when I do look at Garoppolo, when I do look at Goff, and Goff even this year is good a year he's having, he's got tremendous tackles on either side of him. He's got Frank Ragnow up front. He's got Jonah Williams up at the left guard position. He's got a very clean offensive line. Geno's got 2 rookie offensive tackles this year starting for him on either edge. 2. Which has never happened in modern NFL history, by the way. And he's putting up a top 5 season. He's not had a consistent running game throughout the course of this year. So you can't say, well, it's because he had a dominant running game. Walker's put up stats, but it's been on the back of like 4 or 5 really big runs that have kind of juiced those stats up. If you go play in and play out, we cannot create any holes in the running game. So when I look at the season he's having, man, and I go top 5 quarterback season, 2 rookie tackles, bad interior offensive line as far as really any kind of talent goes. He has some stuff to work with as far as DK and Tyler, don't get me wrong, good tight ends, but no running game. That's, to me, pushes this beyond just a guy that's in that kind of game manager or a very good game manager. A guy you go, well, no, he's like a top 15 guy. He's top 5 season. I don't think you get here by luck or happenstance.
Let me play devil's advocate for just a second. So I think it's funny because I remember Jimmy's 2019 season, and by all numbers that you looked at, I mean, top 7, top 10, every category, bona fide top 10 players, what it looked like he would be. And by the way, they were on a run that eventually led them to the Super Bowl. I'm curious to see what happens this week against the 49ers, because the 49ers held him to nothing in week 2. And if they shut him down again this week, then I guess the point is I think Geno can be a good player, but I think the Dolphins are starting to figure this out. Tua was on his way to maybe being an MVP candidate, but we can look at all the numbers. But ultimately, when you look at him next to other quarterbacks, and you're taking a guy even for a season, even this season, and as good of a season as he's having, you're not taking him over the Mahomes or the Allens or the Herberts or, some of these elite guys that are elite. So then the question becomes is, how long are you going to hold on to this guy that you essentially know is a placeholder just because you want to get the rest of the team so good that maybe they can overcome some of the things that this quarterback can't do, and you can be one of the lucky teams throughout history that is able to overcome some deficiencies from your quarterback and go win this thing, versus instead of being the exception of the rule, we know what the rule is across this league. Elite quarterbacks win Super Bowls. That's just the fact of the matter. So why not go get that elite quarterback and figure it out from there? Now it is a crapshoot because you don't know who's going to be elite, and maybe none of those guys are going to be elite. But man, I have a hard time believing. How old is Geno? 30, 31 at this point?
30, just turned 32.
Okay, so 32 years old. All of a sudden at 32 years old, he's turned into an elite quarterback. I don't know if I can trust that.
Let's go through this a little bit. Let's unpack this.
Yeah, let's do it.
Him just turning into a quarterback, because this is a thing I hear a lot about, was like, well, we kind of know what he is. We knew what he was. This is his second chance he's gotten in his NFL career. And if you want to make the argument he should have overtaken Phillip Rivers in San Diego or Eli Manning in Giants, which he actually did, and the coach tried to start him, and there was nearly a revolt in the fan base when he did so. Or if you believe that he was going to overtake Russell Wilson here, even when Russell wasn't playing good football, which he wasn't, I think that'll be a place we disagree, because I don't think in any of those stops he was going to get that chance. And I don't think there was an active opportunity out there for him to get. So he can't control whether or not there's 32 starting opportunities. Those guys play forever now till they're 45 in some cases. There's only so many open jobs. And so I don't think it's an indictment of him that he didn't simply get another opportunity when he left the Jets. He also was put into just about as bad an place you could be put into as a rookie quarterback. Got to start immediately, playing for a defensive-minded head coach. I have no talent around me, no offensive line, no skill position players, and not a very good running back. That's what I've got to work with in my first stop in my first 2 years. And it feels like a lot of people have made their assessment off Geno based off those first 2 years in New York when he was put in that precipitously bad situation. You mentioned Jimmy Garoppolo, which isn't the worst of a comparison for 2019. But again, it's always the context that matters. He's got Shanahan as an offensive coach. Geno's got a defensive-minded coach. It's not exactly the most best mastermind when it comes to offensively speaking. We're leaning into the offense. He had a great running game that year. He had a lot to work with on the outside. He had an offensive line that pass protected for him. He had a fantastic defense on the other side of it. Now let's match that up with what Geno's doing this year. League worst defense, highly inconsistent running game, rookie tackles on the outside blocking for him. Not put in a position to succeed like Garoppolo was put into a position to succeed that year. As well as if you just take the eye test and the throws they make. You talked about it with Garoppolo. 10 yards this way, 10 yards that way. And that matches up to the eye test of what you see on that guy on the football field. He does not push the ball outside the numbers. I can show you throw after throw after throw this year of Geno pushing the ball up the football field, of trying to do more than just dink and dunk all over. And that's one reason I mentioned, for instance, the average yard per attempt stat. You mentioned Jimmy Garoppolo. I'll guarantee that 2019 season, he's not top 5 in average per attempt. No way, no how.
So definitely not.
It's not only a slightly different year, it's a completely different year when you bring all of the contextual items into play as far as a supporting cast goes. Not to say Geno doesn't have something to work with, but that he's performing this well with so many things not working necessarily greatly with this team, whereas Jimmy had so many things working in his favor. I don't put it as that same apropos comparison. The one other thing I'll say to you about the San Francisco game is, rather than being necessarily San Francisco went out there and showed Geno that he is what he is with that, there was way more to that game. And Carroll talked about it in the press conference, so this isn't even my own words. And that was they weren't pushing the ball up the football field. Carroll spoke to that at his press conference about the fear of those guys and pass rushers going against those same rookie tackles I talked about. That's why I mentioned these rookie tackles, because you have to work around them. Even if they're playing decently, I've got to operate around those guys and their lack of, length of time in this league and how green they are, especially being their second start in the league with both of them at that time. So they didn't even attempt to push the ball up the football field in that game. It was all dink and dunk. Geno can only operate what the offense asked him to do at that point. And the running game wasn't consistent in that game, right? We didn't run the ball very well against you guys. So another game where he didn't have that on his hands. Defense gave up 27 points. The one time where he makes a throw up the football field to DK where he completes it on a flea flicker, it gets called back, rightfully so, on a play where we had our offensive lineman up the football field. Not on Geno there, right? He made a great throw in that moment. The other time you're up the football field in that game where you get to the side of your guys' field, what did we do at the goal line? We went to a 3 running back set at the end as Geno had taken you all the way up that football field. Now you bring in the 3 running back set and have one of the running backs throw the ball. So again, context to me always matters on this stuff. And when I look back at that game, did Geno play a great game? No. But was Geno the reason you lost, or Geno hold you back, or did Geno show his true colors of being a middle of the road /20-ish quarterback? No. And I guess what I'm making as an argument to you, Jay, is give another consideration to this guy being more than I think the box some people have kind of put him into and where they put him at.
And I think that's totally fair. I think, and this is why I wanted to make more of the comparison with Goff. I brought up Jimmy just because a lot of people really fell for Jimmy.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden that he was this player that I just never understood it. But I just think he's probably more Goff. And so the other side of my channel is this. It is a Lions content channel as well. And so my co-host, he runs the Lions side. And they're in a very similar situation to Seattle. And he's like, we need to go get this on defense and we need to do this. And I'm like, no, you need a franchise quarterback. He's like, no, Goff's fine. I mean, look at the numbers and he's efficient and he can make all the throws. And I'm like, I agree. But there's something missing. There's you know what I mean? Like, this is a guy, Goff, unlike Geno Smith, this year their numbers are very similar as far as air yards per attempt and, a lot of those numbers, efficiency and whatever. But Goff has also been a Pro Bowler, albeit in a, much better offense with many more options. And I think Geno Smith has gotten an unfair rap because I believe all quarterbacks deserve 3 years. 3 years to start before we know who they are. And Geno Smith, unfortunately, only got the 2. And he was, he made some dumb decisions when he was young. He was a young kid who came into a lot of money and probably made some dumb decisions. And it shot him a little bit in the foot. And now he's getting this second lease on life. He's much more mature. He knows what he's doing. He's bounced around the league. And he's getting really finally at 31, 32 years old, that 3rd year, and you're seeing that breakout season. I think Geno Smith can be this guy for a period, right? Mm-hmm. But if Geno Smith's going up against even a Jalen Hurts or, like I said, an Allen or Mahomes, and I get it. Some of these guys are unicorns, the Herberts. You're not going to necessarily get one of those guys, but man, I feel like a Jared Goff or a Geno Smith in those matchups in a Super Bowl or a playoff, it's like, I'm not giving them any chance against those guys. I'm watching these elite quarterbacks get the ball with less than 30 seconds on a regular basis, needing to go 40, 50, 60 yards and do it time after time after time. And as good as Geno is and as good as Goff is and knowing they can make those throws, man, I just don't trust that they can do those things. Sometimes just elite quarterback play it's different. And when you have it, it's a difference maker. So listen, I understand. I think Seattle can go either way here. And again, if they don't think that guy's out there in this draft or think they can get him, don't get a quarterback just to get a quarterback, because Geno can bridge that gap for a few years, I believe. Well, I think, if you can go get that elite guy, go do that.
I think you do that. And I think your points are very fair. I think part of it is the lack of my faith that there is that guy. You mentioned unicorn.
And that's fair.
I think unicorn's the right label to put. You're right. To me, there's Herbert, Allen, Mahomes, and Burrow. I think those are your 4 guys. I would not put Hurts there quite yet. And again, a guy that's showing you a lot of really the other side of the argument to me, and that is that he's not the most ultimate talented guy. He's a guy that they're putting into a system and they get a lot of supporting cast around him. And now he's taken off on that. And it's actually kind of more proof of the pudding. It's less of a need of a superstar if you can build up that super team around that said player in that way. And I think that's really the path we're trying to take, is rather than looking for the quarterback who's the high volume passer who's going to throw it 40, 45 times a game, we're looking to bring in a guy that can be better than competent as a game manager, a great game manager, like what Geno's giving you, essentially top 5, top 10 level of play. he's giving you that, and then you're able to be a balanced team around that, and then the requirement's not as much there, because that is something I hear. It's, well, you need at the end of the day the quarterback to bring you down. Well, no, at the end of the day, if you build up a team right enough, I don't think it's as much a requirement in the quarterback position. And quite frankly, Jay, I think the game's starting to twist this way a little bit. This is why guys like Brock Purdy can come out there and start to look functional out the game. When in the past, if I put a 7th-round quarterback in 2014 on a football field, he probably wasn't doing jack diddly squat.
Yeah,
But the fact,
no,
I think the fact is that they're doing now is these guys are further along the quarterback position. There's more talent at the quarterback position. There's more of an understanding of how to manufacture stuff for quarterbacks with some of the spread concept stuff that's come into play in the NFL game. I think it's starting to remove less of the need of having the hero guy. But I also just think, Jay, I guess the bottom line, this is just for me, I don't think you're going to find the hero guy. Those 4 guys are so hard to find. They come along once every 6, 7 drafts. To count on you being able to lock in on that guy, I think you could end up getting yourself lost in the forest on that one, especially if you have a team that's ready right now. And if I put Jalen Carter on this team and Trent Simpson from Clemson, and then I got 2 second-round picks and I got $50 million to spend on the open market for this team, I know I can't give you specific moves, but in general, with this team as good as they played this year, would you buy into that team being able to add those assets to put themselves into being a Super Bowl contender with Geno if he's playing at top 10 state over the next 2 years?
Yeah, well, 100%. And I think the one thing about Geno that, again, I don't want it to come across like I'm taking anything away from him, because what he's doing is incredible.
Yeah, no.
And he's a veteran now. He's a veteran. He's decisive. He knows what he wants to do. He's very comfortable in who he is. And I think for Seattle and the type of coach that Pete Carroll is, I think Geno is actually a really good fit. And sometimes I think that's what it comes down to as well, is you can go get a Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, but Pete Carroll's probably not the guy maybe for those quarterbacks, because he does like to be a little bit more conservative. And, the Jalen Hurts would probably work well with them. Geno Smith clearly works very well with them. And I think that there's a lot that goes into that. And yes, I definitely do. I mean, I think that you guys can certainly make a run. I just look at, like
you
I
wouldn't
said,
take that track though. If you were running things, you wouldn't necessarily go that route.
Not necessarily, but again, maybe that guy is coming out next year. The USC kid, what's his name? Caleb Williams, is that his name or whatever?
He's that guy. We're just not.
Yeah, so maybe he's that guy. Maybe you wait till next year to try to make that all-in push and go get him. He's your guy.
Let's walk that through though from a feasible standpoint. You don't have a league worst roster right now. I mean, say nothing of where you think we'll go next year. You'll at the very least. You'll carve out 4 or 5 wins next year for your Seahawks team.
I guess you don't have Denver's pick next year, do you? You got it this last draft. That's right. Okay. All right. Yep.
So, okay. And whoever's picking number 1 on Caleb next year, they're not trading the pick. Colts didn't trade when they had the chance at Peyton Manning. Jacksonville Jaguars didn't trade when they had the chance at Trevor Lawrence. Colts didn't trade when they had the chance at Luck. The only way that you got the Indianapolis, Raven Colts or whatever at the time, to trade Elway to the Broncos was because Elway's family forced it to happen. The only way you got the Eli Manning trade to happen from San Diego to New York was because Eli Manning's family forced it to happen. So that's again where we come back to, is it realistic to go and think you're going to find that generational guy in the court? And I mean, that's a hard line to go down. And if I've got the guy right now in my hand right now, and it looks foggier down that other pathway, and brother, it looks really foggy. The future on that looks at the pathway that looks really foggy. And there's no free agent I want, or guy that I want to try. I want Derek Carr here.
No.
That's where when I settle it all out, it kind of comes down to me on that bottom line. Well, Geno makes sense. I think, let's say he regresses. So he regresses to a top 10 rather than a top 5, and everything else gets better around him and significantly better. I think that team can, I'm not saying it's going to be for sure a Super Bowl contender, but I can see the pathway to getting to being an elite Super Bowl contending like team at that point, especially if they do the go for it moves you're seeing like from your team, adding on top and sacrifice a little for the future on top of what you've added in addition,
Yeah. And maybe you can take the blueprint of the 49ers where, okay, we got our Jimmy Garoppolo, better player, right? But we got our Jimmy Garoppolo good enough to where we can win with them if the team is so good around him. And then if we try it for a couple of years and we're not able to break all the way through, well, then we make that rare all-in move and try to go get a guy. In our situation, it was Trey Lance. We'll see if it works out long-term or not. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but you got to applaud him for trying. And maybe that's something that Seattle can do as well. Yeah, again, I'm not going to get a quarterback just to get a quarterback. It's got to make complete sense. And there's some good quarterbacks coming out this year. Some people are sold on some of them. It doesn't sound like you are, and
well,
I'm not going to begrudge him either way.
It's like the bottom line, the two best ones you have, like CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson from a talent standpoint, are Trey Lance 2.0. And that, like we talked about with Lance, and you're fighting against this with your fan base on trying to caution patience with them a little bit. Like, both of us are pro Lance guys in that respect. Give it some time. He came in so young. He came in so green, didn't play the whole year prior to college. That's the same thing you're going to have to apply with CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson. And so the best two quarterbacks in this draft, who I'm not certain are in that same level of these guys we're talking about, they're the tried and true Caleb Williams types. I'm also going to have to wait a couple of years to get my returns on for them. And if I've got a team that's ready right now, does that make sense to do the wait for the 2 years thing for that? And that's the same debate you guys had with the whole Mac Jones and the trailer. That was going on with you guys. We're kind of running back down the same road. And I'm not so sure that I want to. The roster could be in a very different state 2 years from now. I might suddenly have to start now paying my two tackles right now. And Tariq Woolen's going to want $30 million a year at that point. And now I'm not in the benefit zone that I'm in right now to really take advantage of some of that time period. Because that's some of this too, Jesse, is the fact the young guys that have developed right now are on cheap deals for the next couple of years. And if you strike right now, you're going to be able to go cheap at those places to bump up other places kind of artificially if you have to augment. And again, something that can kind of press you a little faster forward to getting to that promised land.
Yeah, definitely. And God, there's just so many different ways to skin a cat. It really comes down to it. It's tough, because the 49ers, this is the biggest problem with the Trey Lance pick is the timelines were so far off. You're talking about a team that was already in a Super Bowl and then in his rookie year made an NFC championship without him playing. Can they really afford to be patient? This window only stays open for so long. And I think Seattle is getting close to where they could open up that window. And it's like, man, to me, this is really probably the last year where you can go get a young player and have enough patience to where you can develop them truly and see what they can turn into. Or you ride with Geno Smith, you get too good to where, a young guy never makes sense. And then if Geno's not good enough, then you're kind of stuck where the 49ers are at, where it's like, yeah, we're always going to be there, but man, we're just that short. And that short is the quarterback position. It's, I don't want you guys to win another Super Bowl, so I don't care. If that's what happens, then fantastic. But man, it's tough. It's tough when you're this high up. And, again, if you're not a CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, I don't think Will Levis is the answer by any means. I haven't put a lot into these quarterbacks, but Will Levis is a guy that doesn't impress me personally yet. So, I get it. I totally understand.
See, Levis,
I don't know, man. It's a rough situation. What does the fan base think? If we were to poll the chat, what do you think they would say?
I think the majority would be to re-signing Geno Smith.
Okay.
I don't know that it'd be a vast majority, like you're talking some 89%, while there'd be probably a good like 30-40% that would say draft a guy instead. Don't, go a different track. I guess it's part of why you see me get so spirited about maybe seeming like I'm backing up Geno, is because I just feel like it's like, the movie Zoolander's. Like, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. I watch the guy on a weekly basis, and I watch him balling out, and I watch him not stack good performance after good to great performance after good to great performance. I look at the bottom line statistically goes. I look at it every which way around of it, and I go, this guys don't just fall into these type of years. These things don't just happen by, like I said, happenstance. And that's where I've had to kind of fight that battle a little bit within my own fan base of saying, guys, recognize this. And it's still to this day, I think there's a contingent that goes, not seeing it. He's going to, he could have actually had 15 interceptions if guys actually caught him this year. Like, you'll hear stuff like that. And I go, okay, and I just ain't going to win that fight on it. It's frustrating because it's like, he might be having a top 3 all-time season from the quarterback position in Seahawks history, Jay. That good. These don't come down the trek for us. I know you got your little Montanas and your Youngs, and Jeff Garcia comes in and does some. So you guys are all used to your great quarterback play there. Okay. I understand how that is. We haven't had a lot of that here. So it's like,
well, okay. Let me throw this out, because I think the Seahawks are in a little bit different situation here. So, okay. Houston Texans are going to get the number 1 pick. They're going to go quarterback. Okay. Right. Let's say they go Bryce Young. It doesn't matter. Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, one of those guys is going to be there. Currently, as it stands, Seattle has the number 2 overall pick. Okay. So to take a chance on one of these young guys is not necessarily the same situation where it's like, okay, we got to get up. We're going to have to trade 2 first-round picks this year and 1 in the future and really mortgage it. It's like, okay, you could take one of those guys. Let's say you fall to 4th and you got to get up to number 2. Okay. So you're going to spend a first-round pick, the 4th overall, and a second-round pick. You're still going to have a second first-round pick. You still have, all your future assets. You're not mortgaging a ton. And you can sign Geno Smith to kind of be that bridge guy. I still think in that scenario, you still have enough picks plus enough money to really go out and still try to win this next year with Geno Smith. And if Geno Smith proves something, then guess what? You can turn it into more of a Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers situation or Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love situation where they sit 2, 3, 4 years before they have to really start because you trust Geno Smith. Or it comes to a point where Geno Smith plays the 1-year deal. He plays good enough to price himself out, but you guys just maybe you don't think he's the answer. You go let him get paid somewhere else. You get the compensatory pick and you turn it over to the kid. I think you guys are in a good situation to really take a quarterback because right now first of all, you're at number 2, so you're not giving up anything. But if it doesn't play out that way, let's say the Broncos fall to that 4th pick, you're not giving up a lot to go get, a CJ Stroud or a Bryce Young at number 2. I mean, realistically, man, like I think you could kind of do both. You can have your cake and eat it too. And I don't think that's a situation that most teams are in. And I think it's unique for Seattle. And so, hell, the answer might be both.
I'm not going to complain about any way we go with it. I mean, I have a way I prefer, but if you stay and you pick it 2 and you end up with Stroud, I'll be fine with that. I would not like Bryce Young. I don't think that's going to his body's going to hold up at the NFL level at all. And I think these smaller quarterbacks are getting to be a little bit too prevalent in the NFL with as much as they do tend to break down.
And I think Bryce is going to go number 1 personally, but
I'm hoping so. That'd be beautiful for us.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But if we end up taking a Stroud or we run it, I'm actually, I think a lot higher on Levis than you are, and you're not alone on that. There's a lot of people anti-Levis for understandable reasons. I've called the kid like Maverick, man. He's always buzzing towers, but the kid also has the least amount to work with of any of these quarterbacks we're talking about at the top of this draft by a wide margin, while he still plays in one of the toughest conferences in all of college football. And you got to really build into account for me, because you take a guy like CJ Stroud, plays so well when everything's clean, makes all the wow throws, but when it comes to off script or dealing with pressure, not so good. I would offer the same thing with a guy like Bryce Young and watching his tape. And at the NFL level, as you know, you got to play a lot of off script. You got to play a lot of that. And that's, my bold prediction to you. You want a good bold prediction right now before any of these draft analysts have come? Is Will Levis is going to end up a top 5 pick in this draft? Yeah, I hope you. And by the way, I'm so sure of this. I'm so sure of this as an evaluation and where I stand. Like NFL evaluators are going to give this kid the credit that I don't see any of the fans giving him, in the respect of understanding my line is piss poor. I lost Wan'Dale Robinson last year of the draft. I'm throwing to freshman wide receivers. My defense is putrid. He's getting hit on almost every drop back. Almost every drop back come back, he's getting smacked in the face. So the kid's awesome talent. I would not, another guy, I'm not going to, there'll be a lot of people upset, I'm sure, in my own fandom if we took Levis, because they would be saying a lot of what you're saying. Like, you're not alone. Like, a lot of people don't like him. But I think that and not to mention, he's been running the Rams playbook, by the way. He's running an NFL offense there at Kentucky too. It's not a spread formation, literally running the Rams playbook offense. So he will be pro ready. That guy will hit the ground running. You want to talk about who's going to be the best quarterback? I'm just giving you some inside nugget on this, but he's going to be the best of this bunch. The other guys have top end, Richardson and Stroud. 2 years from now, are they going to get there? Are they not? I don't know. 24-year-old Levis is going to start day 1 in the NFL. And if he goes to the right situation where he's not getting beat to hell on every drop back, watch that kid ball out, man.
He definitely has some qualities. I'm not saying he's, and again, to be fair, I don't want to plant my flag in anything because I haven't put a lot into any of them.
Yeah.
And I am one of those guys that really gives some of these smaller known guys a lot of credit. Josh Allen was my guy coming out of that draft. I don't care about the 57% completion. I saw what was on his shoulders and the throw that he was able to make. I thought he would be special. Obviously, I'm an Oregon guy, so I thought Herbert would be special. But, some of these smaller school guys, the lesser known guys, are the ones that do it. And he's not coming from a smaller school per se. He's in the SEC, but he is starting to fall a little bit, and he certainly has some redeeming qualities. I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up being that guy. So, again, just looking at it, man, it's funny because we spent a good probably 40 minutes arguing our points, and the answer might just be in the middle. The answer might be do both. You know what I mean?
Oh,
it might be. It's a possibility.
Yeah, it's like it's called a hedge insurance policy. And certainly I'm not going to argue against it. And I can completely understand the I mean, the quarterback position is the most important position in football, and having, reserves there, as your team is showing right now, you're your third guy. So having a second guy also, if you're a team that's going for it, that you can pull a talented guy off the bench that you don't have to miss a beat on, or you don't have to see your season fall into complete nothingness at that point, is kind of a nice thing to have in this day and age when so many quarterbacks, do go down. And I do mention that, Levis, because I think we do think alike when we look at our quarterback evaluations. That's why you and I align so much, I think, on Trey Lance and what we're looking for in the position. So I think the more you do look at him, I think the more you like, okay, yeah, he has the thing with all the quarterbacks this year is they all took kind of a step backwards this year, as opposed to you getting that step forward from these guys. You saw last year and you went Stroud and KJ Jefferson and DJ Ugalele. And I mean, man, you could go down the line and they all just kind of went this way, the other direction with it. And you go, oh, Lordy, come on, guys, that ain't going to work. Megan with another $5 donation. Thank you, Megan. Says, Jesse, I live in Australia, and the only game we got when I was a kid was the Super Bowl, and Joe was kind of cute, laughing out loud. Sorry, not sorry, B.
This was going back to earlier saying that she was a 49er fan for a little bit. So I totally understandable. Again, if that's the only team that you get to see, it makes sense that you root for them.
Montana, I know he was a married man back in the day, but I'm guessing that he probably would have done quite well in the San Francisco area.
Yeah, he wasn't a bad-looking guy.
Yeah, I'm sure he.
He was no Jimmy Garoppolo, but come on.
What was that thing I saw? Jimmy, like all the cheerleaders going to him at the basketball game and stuff. Hi Jimmy, like, oh Lord, that guy's living the life, man. I'll tell you what, he's living the life. Thank you, though, Megan, for the dono. Mumbles with a $2 donation says, Brandon, don't scare me with the surprise 49er fan. Hey, I warned you guys. I had it on the marker a day in advance, so you guys know what's up. Thank you, though, man. Primo, thank you for becoming a member of the Hawks Nest. Welcome aboard. Thank you for joining, man. You're awesome for doing so. I appreciate you. I know I kept you here for a bit of time here. Let me catch up on my stuff here. I get behind on my donos sometimes.
No, I'm the same way, dude. You gotta, once you get behind, you just gotta run through them. So do your thing.
Randall McDaniel with a $5 donation. Thank you, Randall. Says, we all know this type of game Hawks wins. We all know this. Oh, sorry, let me read it. We all know this type of game. Hawks win. Seahawks 27-17. Go Hawks. Boy, Randall coming in confident.
Man, okay, I like it. I like
the confidence. I do too, Randall. I would love to say that. I do come into this saying you guys easily able to run us 3 touchdowns off the board. But like you said, the point, there's that equalizer being within the division, and it's a Thursday night and it's on the road, and the road teams tend to pay more the price than the home teams do on Thursday night. I mean, like just there's so many things.
Seattle is it's a house of horrors, man. It's been a house of horrors for the 49ers. Yeah, it really has been. That is not a place that the 49ers fare well. It's just not.
It's true. It's been a bad spot. A lot of bad recent memories in there. So it could end up just becoming kind of one of those dogfight, slugfest kind of, type of games. If it does turn into that, if we do keep this close, though, I do see it being one where just the points in general are all down. Like we've kept you guys keep us, we keep you. It's like a 17-14-ish. If we have a pathway to victory, that's kind of the other way I see it. If it's getting into 3 scores, 4 scores, I think that's the Niners at that point probably.
Well, and it's these division games that always happen. It's the Jets sneaking up and beating the Dolphins, or the Washington Commanders sneaking up and beating Philly. It's like all of a sudden you've got this hot team in Philly that everybody's bought into. They lose to Washington, and all of a sudden they're garbage because they lost to the Commanders on primetime TV. It's like, well, hold on, it's a division game. Yeah. These things happen. The strangest things happen in division, and anytime a really good team loses to a bad division rivalry, I never take any stock in it. I never look at the really good team and say, all of a sudden they're not good, because I get how these games work. I've watched it happen with the 49ers for years. Beat teams that they shouldn't in division when they were bad, lose to teams that they shouldn't when they're good. These things happen in division, so would not be shocked.
No, I wouldn't be shocked either. It's different from going on paper to actually being on the football field. And you guys got beat up more than I thought you were going to in that last game of Bucks. I thought with you guys getting by the points you were up, I thought Shanahan would start to. That would piss me off about the Debo thing too a little bit. Is like, I got to be thinking about that Thursday night game. Like, let's dial his carry back this week. We need that. It'd be nice to get the Bucks game, but we need that Seahawks game. So let's get our guys. Let's get our guys prepped. That would have probably annoyed me in that moment as much as anything else. Thank you though, Randall. Appreciate you, man. And I hope you're right. A nice 10-point win would feel really good after the last couple of weeks in some of the games we've had to go through a bit. Kevin Mullen with a $5 don't know. Says if you can take a player from an opposing team, who would you take and who would you give up in equal caliber value? Ooh, boy, this is an
Oh man,
interesting question.
this is a hell
This
of a
is deep.
question.
This is deep, man. This needs to be in a college class. Game theory, Jay, game theory. Okay, so you got to go first on this as I think about mine.
Man, and give up an equal player, that's tough.
That's tough.
Okay. Jeez. All right. I think I don't know if I would necessarily make this trade, but the one thing I have said since the 49ers traded for Christian McCaffrey is I think Debo becomes a little bit more expendable. I do. I think when I look at the 49ers, I think they would be at their optimal performance with somebody that's different or somebody that's similar to Ayuk. So either a big body receiver like a DK Metcalf that can just go up and get the ball and take the top off, I think would be helpful, or a guy like Ayuk who can just be a route runner and shake you out of your boots. Because Christian McCaffrey and Debo overlap so much that, why not go get another pure receiver? And a trade that I've talked about is sending Debo to the Jets for Elijah Moore and a first round pick. That's a trade I would love to make if they would be open to it.
But you just signed him to a contract extension, isn't the
Yeah. And I looked at
the
the money. They would have to be, if they did it post June, the dead money would not. I think it's only like $6 million. It's not a ton.
okay. That's not
So
bad.
they could make it happen. So in this scenario, as I look at Seattle, there's just not a lot that I would, trade for. DK is one of those guys that I'm not a big DK fan just because he reminds me of those traditional receivers, me guys. And I got to be honest, I was a little surprised at the way he handled himself in the offseason in a good way. The way that he shows on field, I really thought that he would kind of show to be the diva when it came down to contract negotiations, and he did none of that. It was Debo Samuel actually that kind of went that route. And I understand it. These guys only have one chance to get paid sometimes, but that did shock me a little bit. But if I had to make a trade with the other team, I'll preface it this way. I have to make the trade. I can't just skirt around and say nobody. It would be the Debo for DK, because DK on this team, you get somebody that is that big of a body. He's different than everything else that we have on this team. And he can take the top off with Christian McCaffrey underneath, George Kittle underneath. You got the pure route runner and Brandon Ayuk. Man, how do you stop this offense? And especially if you got Trey Lance under center, who can maybe be the one guy that could outthrow DK. That's an offense that scares the hell out of everybody in the league. So yeah, that's the trade I would make if I had to make one.
You'd also remove out the 8-man boxes a lot of times in the running game for the Niners with DK there, and that force, because they'd go to they'd run the road. He gets as much double teams as anybody in the league, so you're going to roll that double team to him. Did you know last year he was doubled as much as Devontae Adams?
That would not surprise me. In fact, I thought this offseason that was kind of like one of those things that I thought was going to happen, is that Green Bay was going to take those assets that they got for Devontae and try to flip them for DK. I thought it made a ton of sense for Green Bay. I mean, geez, but Seattle's smart to keep them.
Isn't it? And they are. You watch the Green Bay situation, and you sometimes look at organizations and you shake their head about how they can be so smart in certain places, but so dumb in one other place. And this is a franchise that didn't ever, to me, felt like they gave Brett Favre enough from a receiver standpoint. They had a chance at Randy Moss at one point and said, "Nah, we're good," when he was with the Raiders. And now you have Aaron Rodgers. I know Devontae Adams had the choice to walk, so they were definitely offering him, but then to do nothing for the position and just decide, as they for years now, the point he's got to beg him for Randall Cobb last year. Such a strange thing there with Green Bay and the way they view the receiving core like that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's completely strange. And now I do think that they've got a player in Christian Watson who I loved coming out of the draft, a big body guy who's fast, not a DK type, but some similar things that they got going on. I think he could be a good future guy, but Aaron Rodgers needs a guy now, and DK would have been that guy.
That's my assessment too with Watson. I liked him, but there was going to be a lot of rough edges you had to
Mm-hmm.
hewn around. And with Rodgers, you needed a guy that was ready to go now, not one of those. A couple years from now, what a player he'll be. Like with Adams, Devontae Adams took a little bit of time to come around, or Jordan Nelson. That's their approach. But that's the thing, we've got our approach. This is how we do what we do. Yeah, but it's not bringing you guys the returns back that you want it brought back. It's leaving you to be just this little bit short. It's again, you got to change when something ain't working for so long period of time. And I can track back to the Favre days of them just not doing enough there at that receiver position, not making the right choices there, which I think holds them back. If I got a star talent like that, give
When
him a guy.
you have 30 years of elite quarterback play and you come away with 2 Super Bowls, you didn't do it right. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. Two quarterbacks that if you're talking about the top 8 quarterbacks in the NFL over the last 30-year period, those 2 guys make that list. And you're absolutely right. That's unacceptable if you've got that level of quarterback play. And they can't just lean back and go small market, small market. No, it's not you having the stones to put your money on the table, right? Put your money on the table and say, this is our year to go get this. That's what that is. And if I was a Green Bay fan, knowing right now what they're about to maybe head into, save Jordan Love being the guy, it's in. I didn't give mine. I'm gonna give you one that you're gonna probably reject, but I'm gonna take it anyway. I'll give you Tariq Woolen, but then I get Nick Bosa back.
Oh, I love Tariq Woolen though. That pick right there, man. I'm telling you, oh my gosh, he's going to cause us fits for the next however long. I'm not excited about that,
Bro.
And we talked about this, Brandon, on my channel. But as soon as you made the pick, I tweeted out, "Seahawks did it again, man. They freaking did it again." I knew right away that was going to be a pick that we would hate for you guys for years to come. I just knew it.
It's been shocking to see how good he's been, man. That he's gotten this fast, and his tape was rough coming out of college. It was like, this is going to take a while to clean this up. He's got the great natural stuff I can't teach, but geez Louise, he has been, it's legit. And he's doing remember the Sherman thing? You got a little bit of this with the Niners. Like, you couldn't run a 9 route on Sherman. You ran a 9 route, it was done. Didn't matter if he's a little older and still a little slower even when he got to 9. He was taking that away from a technique standpoint. And this kid takes it away from the same type of fashion. He does it from the freakish standpoint of like, I'll give you a couple of yard start. Here, you have a couple head yard start. I won't start yet. No, keep going. I'm not going to start yet. Okay, now I'm going to go.
And he's so big and so fast. Yeah. It's just, oh God, I don't know how you beat this kid. You guys got a great one.
I think he's going to be on a star. I'm not a guy that likes to apply this superstar level of things on anything with it, but this kid's really got to get this quickly. He was baiting the Rams quarterback a week ago. Like, he admitted on the press conference of, like, you could saw in the things, like, he's kind of like trotting a little bit. He's giving the running back a little bit of space, but he had a running back running a wheel route, knew he could outrun the guy whenever he wanted. Quarterback throws it, and then he just goes over and undercuts it. But a rookie cornerback, number one, not even like, let's talk about a star trajectory quarterback, a cornerback who's a rookie baiting anything. I've never heard of that in the NFL in my life. It's always a guy that's been in the league for a few years to get to that point, that he's this comfortable, this fast. Yeah, I know you probably wouldn't take that for Nick Bosa, and I don't blame you for that, but I can't find one in my head that, I do a Trent Williams for Charles Cross, but that's just, you guys get a little bit younger at the position, a little bit not as good either.
So. Yeah. I don't know if that's a good one for you guys long term.
I don't know if I could find one exact on it, but I do like Bosa, and that's Bosa. Frankly, like with what you guys did as a pathway to Bosa, bro, is what pushes me into a direction of going with trading back is number one priority for me, because I know the haul we can get. I want that Niner-like haul you guys gave up. I want to get that back, but not beyond that. It's also, if we can't do that, I'm going Jalen Carter. Because I'm looking to replicate a little bit of what you guys did as the bedrock of your creation of your defense. You had other parts there, DeForest Buckner, Eric Armstead. Yes, there was a lot of good stuff already there, but then you add this freak show coming off the edge is that final piece to it's like the dude's rug, man. It brings the room together. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it definitely. Yeah, I get it. I totally understand it. And when you've got elite players that are pass rushers or tackles in this game, it's hard to pass on those guys, especially because those guys you miss on a heck of a lot less than you do a quarterback that high.
The great point, man. I think it's a lot easier. And I think the NFL, to my eyes, has become better in targeting, especially what I call the tier 1 group of the draft, because fans think of tier 1 as being 32 players in the first round. In actuality, it's like 14 to 15 guys that are truly star level, Pro Bowl level, all pro potential players. But the NFL, I think, though quarterback is still that one that's the 30% hit rate and it slides all over the place, the other positions, it feels like, in targeting the truly elite talent of the draft, the NFL is getting better about that. Would you agree in that tier 1 phase of things?
Oh yeah, definitely. And quarterback is such a crapshoot. I mean, even a couple of years ago when Lance came out, there was there was Zach Wilson, there was Fields, there was Lawrence, Lance, and Mac Jones. And I was running the numbers. I'm like, realistically, high end, 2 of these 5 are going to hit. That's high end.
Mm-hmm.
Likely only one of these 5 guys is going to hit. The other ones might be okay, but 2 of these guys are going to be out of the league in 5 years or career backups. And you just never know. Now, I think that's actually starting to play out a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, Lawrence is starting to look like a guy. Fields might be a guy. Lance is still up in the air, but Zach Wilson and Mac Jones nothing to write home about. It plays out even when it's like a can't miss quarterback draft. You're always going to miss. Somebody's going to miss somewhere.
You are. And that's exactly right. It is bearing out that way. We'll see on Fields. Chicago didn't set him up in the best territory to make an evaluation off him initially. But I do think that, where mine was at, I said Lawrence and Lance were my 1-2 in that draft coming out. And I still feel like I feel pretty damn good about that in my outlook of that. I think that's bearing out pretty closely to the mark of things. And you can also see why I was sitting getting ready to laugh my ass off if you guys took Mac Jones now. Can you see why I was
Dude,
can you see why I was celebrating Shanahan doing that stupidity at the time? Like, why now I was like, please do it. Please give up 3 first-round picks for Mac Jones. Please, if there's a Lord, if there's a God above, if he really exists, he will speak into Shanahan's ear and say, take Jones. You want Mac?
I was so confident going into that. I portrayed confidence going into it. They weren't going to go Mac. We did the draft live, and I'm telling you, when the pick was in and they walked up to the podium, I'm like, please, God, say Trey Lance or Justin Fields right now. If it is Mac Jones, I'm ending the stream. That's what's about to happen.
Oh, I know the feeling, man. When you've got a train coming down the track for as far as your team goes, and you go, don't get hit by the train. It's coming. Don't. It's way out there. I can see the light on the front of it. Just get off the tracks. And it was getting close. You're right. It got right up to the point. He really likes him. There's fierce debate going between the general manager and head coach right now regarding who they want. You're like, oh, please come on, Mac. But you guys went with Lance, and I think that one did not make. Then that was the weird thing. That I got swayed to the other side because Lance was my number 2. So now I get swung to the other side of the pendulum. Like, hell. Well, that didn't work, didn't it? I just went to crap. Geez, that escalated quickly. I hope he does good, though, for you guys to validate some of us, because I think that the film and what we've watched on that kid, I watched the tape that you dropped, a video you dropped a couple days ago regarding all the throws he's made that shows he can do the check down stuff. I can't believe that you have fans that are arguing he can't make check down throws.
Dude, and it's funny because, within that video, I threw out where Purdy was at through his first 46 throws versus Lance. And so, of course, Purdy plays a good game, and everybody's like, give us the update. And I'm like, okay, it's not going to be as good as what you think, but here it is. And, of course, Lance is still holding his own in the throwing category. And then people are mad that I posted it. I'm like, well, you asked for it. So now you're mad that I posted it because it didn't bear out the way you thought it would? Like, what's happening?
Yeah. The numbers actually validate my argument I've been making this whole time. You guys are right. You're short selling them, and give them a chance here. Stop looking through the lens of the snapping your fingers and look at where he's going to be going, and I think it's gonna be good for you. Just no power runs from Shanahan. You guys will be fine. Put that to bed. Put that to bed. Megan with the $2 donation. Thank you, Megan. Says no trading back. B, keep the second pick. She's big anti-trade, and she knows that's my number 1 want right now, because I'm just telling you, man, I know that haul is so tasty. It's such a tasty, tasty haul. So many picks you get back in return, and it's just to turn that down for me, Jay, is just too enticing. Especially like I said, like you got Young goes number 1. There's very well a team there that looks at Stroud and says that's the number 1 quarterback in the draft.
Oh yeah.
And then all it takes is the one team, just that one. And I still stay in tier 1. I go back to 8, 9 versus I'm in that tier 1. I'm getting still an equivalent player. In this last draft, wouldn't you argue, I'm picking from 3 to 8 or 9, I'm getting kind of equivalent player. I mean, technically right now, Charles Cross is outperforming Ike Nwanu by a little bit as far as the left tackle position, and he's vastly outperforming Evan Neal, the other left tackle that went in this draft, just playing right tackle. So I feel like you get kind of an equivalent player, but you get all those picks in addition to it.
Well, and I think when you get quarterback going 1 and 2, then it pushes it even further, because now all of a sudden you're not taking the best player in the draft necessarily till pick 3, So now that window goes from like 3 to 13 potentially.
Yeah. Yeah, you could still end up landing at 8 or 9, grabbing the best positional player at a given position at that point, and adding all that on top of it.
Look at Dallas, the year that all those quarterbacks went. When we took Trey Lance, they ended up with Parsons, and they got him pretty damn late. So
especially considering the talent. You don't get freak show talent at that point. We're just talking about how
No.
they're doing a better job of realizing what are those. And that one only slipped between the cracks because he didn't do any pass rushing at Penn State. So
Hmm.
people didn't know what he could really do from that element of things. But you're right. It helped to push him down. He probably goes much higher if even 2 or 3 less of those quarterbacks go off the board in those, what was it? It was 5 in the first 13 picks or 14 picks, something like that we had going.
15 for sure. I
Yeah.
thought Mac was the 15th pick, but
Maybe
yeah,
yeah,
5.
that sounds
That's
right.
yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot. We haven't had that. I think we're going to have this year. I can't believe Bryce Young is going in the top. Somebody's going to take a risk on a guy. He's going to measure
Oh
5'10"
yeah.
and a half at the combine, by the way. It's
Yeah.
one
Oh
of those,
yeah. He's
they
gonna.
always
Yeah.
do that times where he's
Yep.
going to be itty bitty. He's going to have to put sand in his pants to get to 195. To think that kid's going to hold up on a weekly basis in the NFL. I mean, I saw him tip over this year and fall on his shoulder and hurt himself. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and you're seeing it, man. I mean, Kyler Murray, Tua, like there's some small quarterbacks in this, and really we have Russell Wilson to thank for this. Like the fact that Russell Wilson was able to do what he did. Nobody was taking quarterbacks under 6'3" before Russell Wilson and Breeze really bit off the way they did. But you look at Russell Wilson and the way he was built. I mean, he's built like a freaking running back. He's so thick, and
Yeah.
it's not big hands, powerful build. I mean, Russell Wilson's a muscular kid. He's not frail. And some of these kids are coming in are 5'10", 5'11", and then they're frail on top of it. It's like, man, they look like Allen Iverson out there. And it's like,
Yeah.
you can't do that on the football field and last long term. That's rough. I was shocked when the 49ers played the Dolphins and Brock Purdy, who's not a big kid at all. I mean, he came in under 6'1". He's not very big. He was bigger than Tua when they met at midfield. I was shocked at that.
Good
Tua's
size bigger,
small.
right? A good, not just there's an inch there, but you're going, there's a couple inches and there's some width.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
it's all the way around.
It was shocking. It was shocking how small Tua looked.
I think you're 100% right about the Wilson driving these things. I think Wilson drove Baker Mayfield going number 1. I think he drove Kyler Murray going number 1. And that teams have done this thing where it's now gotten into this, goes without saying, that you can get these kind of guys when in actuality, it's not the case. And if you look at Baker's or Kyler's or both these guys that are undersized, they all have had multiple injuries in their very short career and had a hard time holding up. Even in some cases, guys that haven't necessarily played every single ball game. And one guy that stood out this last draft, for instance, was a lot of people might want us to draft was Matt Corral. And I was like, no, the guy's frail. Just everything you just said about that was exactly what he is. And I go, this guy's going to get broken. I said throughout the college season, then he got broken at the end of the college season. And I said, everybody's through let's give him the draft. Let's give him the draft. He already got broken in Carolina in like the preseason. Didn't even get past one preseason game, I don't believe, without a foot injury that took him out the whole year. I just think you need a guy that's got some, even those guys are going to get hurt, but at least they got more of an ability to kind of hold up. Like Herbert, he can sustain the chest injury early on this year and still go out there and keep banging on, cracking on,
Yeah, and Hurts kind of fits into that mold as well. He's only 6'1", but he's got that Russell Wilson build. I mean, he's thick. This is not a small guy may not be tall, but these are guys that are big. And so when they get hit, it's just not as crucial for a guy like that.
Yeah, I feel like Hurts and Wilson are easily 220 when they're game day, and then you've got a guy like Young that's I think he's a 190 game day guy.
Yeah,
and that's 30 pounds different. That's substantial. It is substantial, but we'll see where he goes. The fact I've heard the same thing. The Texans are interested in him, but I would be if he goes number 1, man. That would blow me away. I just don't. I mean, even on his when he tries to like wind up to throw deep down the field, he's got with his little body, he's got to like. Like he's starting up a lawnmower, like it's when he's really got to like, and I don't know how that's being missed by some people when they're watching. Like, you guys watching this wind up, like it's not, it doesn't just free and easy come out of his hand and just explode out of his hand. He's got to put his whole body into it just to get it to come out, just barely. Randall with a $5 donation says, I'll rescind my earlier post. Hawks win 17-13, but we all know this is the time Pete gets the boys up.
Randy, I haven't even made a claim as to why you were wrong, and you're already working back my way. I love it. By the time this show's over, I'm going to have you saying that the 49ers are going to win. I like it.
Don't let him talk you into it, Brandon. He's using that dirty 49er magic on you. He's using that Bay Area magic. Don't buy into it. I like it, though. 17-13. I'll take that win, Randall. I will take it, man. Mumbles, and thank you, Randall, for the double don't know, man. Mumbles, thank you for the $5 donation. Says, don't write off Harris B. He's a good reason why we only are giving up 2 yards on some rushes. That in 1/3 of the plays when Al Woods is in there. Nope, Shelby Harris is definitely doing pretty good. I think he's going to be a part of our future as at least a very useful rotational guy. I think the fact he's being asked to be our kind of de facto best guy on the interior has been the problem there, is that we just need more help down there. But I don't think he's been, PFF's liked him. I think to my eyes, he's had some good moments in there. So he's been all right with it. He's not the part of the problem, I'd say. And Al Woods has been fine, but he's 57 years old. So he can only play 20% of the snaps. He's a gray beard's gray and long, Jay. It's gray and long. He's playing good.
Is Bruce Irvin on the team again?
Bruce, you better believe it, man. He's balling, bro.
I thought he was out of the league like 4 years ago.
No, he's balling. He was with us last time, tore an ACL, bad ACL operations. He'd been kind of like getting his legs back on it, but like he's come in and like Darrell Taylor's been kind of a disappointment this year. He's really been backwards. Bruce came in and gave you a lot more consistency, both as a pass rusher and in stopping the run than what you were getting from Darrell Taylor. So you had to, it made a lot of sense to bring him in. He's been really good for us. The old man's getting it done. It kind of sucks. Like, we're not having defense to get anything done, but it's like the old men are getting it kind of done with Al Woods and Bruce, Shelby Harris. It's like the 30-year-old guys, the young guys that aren't kind of pulling their load outside of a Tariq Woolen guy, so.
Well, they got to learn to be professionals. Maybe having those veterans around will help them out long term.
Bruce talks about it being a buy-in thing. And I think he's on the button. He's been on Super Bowl teams. He knows what it takes. And he looks at the locker room, and he had a press conference, and he spoke about this last week of, everybody's got to be on the same page. Everybody's got to be buying in. And when everybody's not, it's obvious. And that's part of why I think why you see the defensive struggles we have this year is it's just, you're not getting everybody all aligned. And that's what made the Legion of Boom special. It's probably what makes your defense special is, you have everybody who's all bought in on the approach, and that it sounds so simple and easy, I think, but it's sometimes about doing the dirty work. It's about staying on task. It's doing your job. And we just don't, I think there's a little bit of we're in the process of getting to that place of things. That's still a little bit of the transition happens. That's why I say, Jay, that to me, defense is where we need to kind of address this offseason too. We spent our first 3 or 4 picks just picking, going to the defensive side of the ball. I would be mighty okay with that if they wanted to go that route.
Oh, I mean, your offense can put up points. If you don't go quarterback, then I think that makes a ton of sense for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if we went and got the best center in the draft at the top of the second round, which there's not a center that's going to go in the first this year off my early evaluation, you get the best center, and then you come away with the Jalen Carter, Trenton Simpson linebacker, and then another defender with the other second round pick we have. I think that's substantially on top of what you spend out in the open market. Substantially helps this team out, I would think. But we got to do it. We got to make the right signings and move still on top of it. Mumbles with $2 donation says, man, I'm feeling listening to the Pacific Northwest isolation right now. Oh, thank you, Mumbles. I appreciate it. Yeah, Jesse, I don't know about where you're at. Where'd you say you're at right now?
I'm in Tampa now, but I am from the Pacific Northwest. Yes.
Yeah, you know how it is right now. The days are gray. The clouds are over the top. I'm out here on the eastern side of the state, so it's cold and ice and snow everywhere. It's not fun.
That's why I moved, man. I couldn't. 35 years, man, and I got to see sun. So I moved to Tampa. I went about as far away as I could.
It's got to be brutal on those East Coast games, on the primetime games for you, isn't it? Like, you got to be.
You know what? I will say this: where the age that my kids are at, it's actually been kind of fantastic because I stay up late as it is. And all of my shows are always at night. Anytime we schedule, it's always like later at night for me. And the reason is because kids are in bed, wife's in bed. So it's like I get all the family time. Even on a Sunday, you think about it, games don't start till 1. Usually the 49ers aren't playing till the 4 o'clock time slot. So I got all day to spend with the family. Then it's like, all right, 49ers are on. I'm going to do my post game afterwards. Now I'm taken away. But, at that point, my kids are going to bed in 2-3 hours. So we're good to go.
But then you have to get up early the next day, and you're probably zombied.
Yeah, no, that's true. I'm definitely, but that's just the way I work. I don't know.
That's the grind,
I'll be up till 2 tonight, and I got to be up at 6:30 to take them to school. So it's just the way it works for me, I guess.
I feel that schedule, man. I know how it goes. It's the life of the YouTuber, bro. That's the life of the YouTuber. Thank you, though, Mumbles. I appreciate it. Chad Hart says, Brandon, congrats over 10,000 subscribers. Thank you, Chad. Seahawks fans, let's beat these Niners on Thursday and send them back on the Greyhound buses.
Chill out, huh?
We can make you ride Greyhound buses. That's pretty cold. Not only do you lose, but and you will take the bus home.
Yeah. You will lose your charter jet.
I'll tell you, some of those old school coaches, I wouldn't have put it past them to do some of that back in the day. Winners get airplanes.
Yeah,
Coach.
exactly. That's exactly it.
No. Well, thank you, Chad. I know we're going to have Last Second Sports. Will probably be there before the end of the year, especially you guys get in the playoffs. No doubt you'll get there, but you're already on that track yourself. And like I said, man, you do feel a little bit of the nice bump from that algorithm thing where it is a little bit of that grind through the first couple of years when you're under 6,000 is it's just kind of steady and slowly going through. But then it definitely kind of, it seems like it injects as YouTube goes, okay, you're legitimate. We'll give you
Yeah,
some,
yeah. You've been trying hard enough. No,
we'll
and
open the
that's crazy,
floodgates.
man. You're up over 10,000 too. And that I feel like 10K, it's like there's something about that 10K number. And I don't know if you look at it the same, but I just feel like 10K legitimizes you because I was looking at statistics and Brandon, getting to 10K is not easy. I think it's like 1.3% of the channels made. Millions and millions of channels get over 10K. So that's something that you should be proud of. I know it's a grind to get there. You're, probably over 300 videos in just to make it happen. And I'm going to, take 300 videos as well to get there. So it's a grind, and people see your 3-4 live shows a week, right? And they think, okay,
Mhm.
cool, it's 3-4 hours, but they don't understand to come up with topics and make the thumbnails and promoting everything, and then watching. You don't get to just watch a game once. You better know what the hell you're talking about throughout the week. So you've probably watched the game 2, 3, 4 times from all different angles. There's a lot that goes into it, and you're not. YouTube doesn't pay a lot when you're at the smaller YouTube channel. We still got full-time jobs and all these other things. My $1,000 on my YouTube channel is not cutting it for the fam. So, it's a lot of work for something that you love. And I think that's the ultimate thing is you get to show your passion, you get to show your love, and you're grinding through. And now all of a sudden, even if it's not a lot, to make money at something that you love and you have a passion for is the craziest, wildest, coolest ride that you could ever go through.
I think you kind of dude, you inspire me here, man. You put it, I think, in exactly the way that I put it. I couldn't put it any better. In that it's this is a thing that you do that you have a love for and you have a passion for, and you hope it goes somewhere. And but it's the love that gets you through, I think, the grind with it. Because for me, the grind's been tough, but it's also been so rewarding because it's been so much fun. Whereas more usually do a grind, it's like it's a grind. It's I've got to earn every little inch of this. Whereas this at every turn, it has been so fun, but it is cracked open for me in that way. This year, I'm a contractor. I'm able to dial less of that work back, get more into this. The door starts to open a little bit wider to this becoming the full-time, job, though, like you say, it's for a very long period of time. This is a thing that requires 50, 60 hours a week put into it as it's been, which I'm happy to put in. I love doing it. And if I didn't love it, I wouldn't put those hours in. I wouldn't be like, well, eventually I'll get to 20K and I'll do it full time. And then it'll be just put your hands behind your head and it's all backfloat city. But it's fun doing this, man. And like you said, whenever else in your life, you get to do your passion, something you love to do and be able to make it your livelihood in this day and age, especially where everybody's strapped to a desk or strapped to a job that they hate. And this is not that. This is so exciting, especially for the combination we have. We can go different directions and there's so much. Football's that unique sport, bro, where it's just there's so many layers to it. Some sports, it's you unpack baseball, you're going to pack on the surface. It kind of is what it is. But with football, there is this depth you can go in so many different directions of it that makes it so much more enriching, I think.
Yeah, and there's so many different. I mean, gosh, you can have a difference of opinion from so many different people. I mean, you and I just spent an hour. First of all, the Seattle Seahawks, I don't care what you guys do. You guys are a rival. But man, that was a fun conversation. We spent
Yeah.
40 minutes arguing what you should do with these picks and how you should build your team and structure it. And we came at it from completely different angles, had a respectable conversation, and it was a hell of a lot of fun, man. I hope the chat enjoyed it as much as we did.
Oh, I know they do. And that's a part of why you have the growth where I have the growth I have is that you want to foster those environments, have disagreements. It's not fun just doing echo chamber places. We want to have stuff where we can really challenge each other and try to, I think you get closer to the truth that way, quite frankly, whether you're convinced or not convinced, you do in your own mind, I think you get closer to where, the truth is at. And I love it. It's exciting about doing this. I love the disagreement as much. And, you're right. People come, there's not just one answer. That's the thing. It's not there's one just answer and clear way. There's a lot of different pathways and approaches to being successful football team or how to build a football team or how to structure taking yourself to a title. Kevin Lonice with a $5 dono. I better catch up on these donos at some point here, bro. I'm going to have you here for 5 hours. Kevin, thank you for the $5. Says, Purdy doesn't have to throw the ball. Purdy doesn't have to throw the ball. We can't stop the run. Darn, it hurts to say that.
Yeah, and that's just it. It's funny because everybody keeps saying, well, this is the week where Purdy's going to get tested. And I'm looking at the defenses and some of the things that he's going to have to do. I'm like, I don't think he's going to get tested until the playoffs, to be real with you. And to be fair, I want to be very clear. When you're the last pick in the draft, technically everything that you're doing and playing this well, regardless of whether it's the worst defense in the league or the best defense, he's playing above what the expectation is. He's doing a fantastic job. But to have a true test, I mean, I don't know if it's going to happen in the regular season with some of these teams that we play. Just defensively, it doesn't mean we're going to win every game, but just stylistically and how they match up with the 49ers offense, I don't know if Purdy's going to have to do a ton.
Well, especially because I think some of their success you're having, especially recently in the running game, has to do with those defense. Why we're struggling a bit is defenses are wearing down now at this point in the year. It's a 17-game season now. That extra one's on there. Those teams that are going to grind a little bit. Oh, we got to play San Francisco this week. I got Trent Williams pulling back 15 times across the formation to hit me. Like, oh, when's Cabo? So I think that that's definitely going to be in your favor. I think you have one of the weaker schedules remaining as well, as far as that setting up in your favor. So, but I agree with Kevin. This could be like your Garoppolo playoff experiences or the Super Bowl where he throws 9 times in this game. I mean, if I'm Shanahan, why wouldn't I do that? All I got to do is get to 30. Like we said, magical number in this game for me, if I'm Shanahan, is like 33 rushing attempts. If I get to 33 rushing attempts, I'm winning this game. I really would probably feel like that if I'm Shanahan. The only pathway for us is if something wonky happens, we get a special teams turnover, a fumble here, fumble there.
Week 2. That's how you got your touchdown.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's going to have to be kind of that route with it too. So it's going to take a little trickery here to kind of pull it on our end of it, but I don't think Purdy's going to have to do a whole lot in this game with how we're not stopping the run. I mean, it's just, there's that minimum of that 3 yards in a cloud of dust stuff that's there, which is of course the bedrock of the zone scheme that Shanahan's based this thing at the end of the day, is that he wants to get more yards than that, but it will always get you those consistent 3 yards, which will then consistently put Purdy in situations of third and shorts, which we've of course had issues stopping third down this year because of that. So
yeah, absolutely.
It all kind of runs together. I agree with you, Kevin, though. Thank you for the $5 dono. Staniel, thank you for the $10 donation. Says, hey, I was talking to some people in Brendan Nelson's Discord, and a bunch of them seem to think Pete is the problem of this defense. Do you guys think that Pete Carroll is the problem? Why or why not? I'll let you begin to cover this one because I'd like to know where your perspective is on this one.
Man, Pete Carroll is a guy that I admire from afar. I'll tell you that right now. I mean, what he's been able to do for this team long term at his age, and then to turn it over. And Pete Carroll, to me, he can do no wrong. So, I get it, being within the thing. You can look at it and say, all right, Pete's the problem. And maybe he is. I don't know how much of a hand he has in things. He is a little bit old school. We talked about the specific type of quarterbacks that probably work best for him and the offenses he likes to run. But the way that they were playing offense, a lot of times, looking back on it now, Russell Wilson may have fallen off a couple years ago, and they did a good job of disguising it. Remember let Russ cook, and why aren't they doing it? And when they open it up, it looks good. Maybe Pete knew a little bit more than the rest of the league, and he did a good enough job of disguising it to where they could still go and get a haul for him when the time was right. I think Pete Carroll's a smart guy. I think he knows what he's doing, and once he gets the horses that he actually needs to make this defense tick, I think that he's going to be able to adjust because, again, he may be an older coach, but man, he is not afraid to adjust with the times from what I've seen.
I think it's well put on your part. It does bear to mind me a little bit of like what you talked about with Shanahan earlier. And this is probably a place that you can attest to. We have a hard time getting to in these kind of conversations, which is a point of nuance. And I think that I have equal admiration for Shanahan and what he's doing with the Niners. I love him as a coach, but you mentioned those things of like the running up the middle or working Deebo Samuel, where it's not perfect. There's a bit of nuance here where he kind of needs to fix this thing. This is kind of a bad thing here that needs to get corrected along the path, but it doesn't remove him from then still being an amazing coach or one of the better coaches in the league. But it can be something that can hold you back. And I don't know if you feel this way on some of these things that is his Achilles from necessarily getting to that Super Bowl if it's not corrected or fixed. Is that a fair assessment of your view on Shanahan with maybe the small things you might have as far as nitpicks go in your view with him as a coach?
Yeah, 100%. And, it's happened repeatedly. We can move injuries aside. The 10-point lead is a real thing. I mean, he's blown 10-point leads in one Super Bowl as an offensive coordinator, another Super Bowl as a head coach, and then an NFC championship. I mean, at some point, like, this is a normal thing, and he gets conservative, and he just, there's things that he needs to fix. But there are a lot worse coaches out there than Kyle Shanahan, and so you're in a situation where it's like, well, you're not going to fire Shanahan. I mean, maybe you can trade him and do the John Gruden trick and get a bunch of picks for him, but then who's going to replace him? I just, from a distance, again, people look from the outside looking in, probably look at Shanahan and think he's flawless. I think when we're close to the situation, we can nitpick it, just like you guys should do. I mean, you should challenge everything that happens in your organization. I think as a fan, that's one of the rights that you have, is to challenge things that you're seeing. You're paying your hard-earned money. You're spending your time watching this team. You shouldn't just take everything for what it is because it's your favorite team. I think it's okay to challenge the status quo. But I'll tell you, from the outside looking in, I mean, Pete's an incredible coach. So,
Yeah.
you guys got a lucky there, I think.
Well, I think, and it's part of what he brings to the table is sometimes outside of the X's and O's, which is hard to measure and gauge, and so people don't put as much value behind it. I do culture building, getting players motivated every week. I mean, we've been dominating the 10 a.m. start times for the last 5 years, and that used to be a time going back to the 80s with me where our East Coast guys go to the West Coast. It's 8 o'clock their time or 7 o'clock their time, and they're playing an NFL game. They're not playing at peak performance, and so there's so many things he does in development of young guys and stuff too on top of that you really like in his game, but there are some holes. Doesn't mean he's not necessarily the guy to be here long term. I do worry, though, that lack of defensive adjustment, for instance, could be the thing that ends up hindering him from taking a team back to being an elite. Do you feel like that thing with Shanahan and the conservative nature is something that he is going to correct, or is it something that just exists within him that you get part and parcel with Shanahan?
I think it's something that he can correct. I think I think the quarterback plays into it pretty heavily. I do. I mean, listen, I've just never been a Jimmy Garoppolo guy, and I think Brock Purdy coming in and playing the way that he has, and the trust that he's put into Brock Purdy immediately, kind of shows you that Jimmy Garoppolo has been a myth this whole time. That's just me personally. And I think once he gets that quarterback, and that's why Trey Lance was brought in, because he can make all the throws and he can open up things running the ball and just be that player that you need him to be. I think once he gets that quarterback that he can just go all in with, you're going to start to see an offense that's wide open. You're going to see these. I mean, you've already seen it with Brock Purdy. You're not afraid to go for it all of a sudden on fourth down when you would have normally been conservative in these situations. He's coaching very, very free right now. And I think that's what an elite quarterback, if he can get that guy, will allow him to do long term.
It's a great point. And I think you talked, if you wanted to distill this down into a comparison with these two coaches, it's kind of the same place that they both have to engage. And I think you touched on it, which is the aggressiveness. It's the playing to win rather than playing not to lose.
Yeah.
And I think that there's more of a reason for Shanahan to do it recently, as opposed to Carroll doing it, because at least you've had the great defense, you've had the running game. Those usually are things you can work off of to kind of play that way. To kind of, it's a tight game, but you can get your way through. With us, we don't have a good enough defense or running game to lean back in that way. But
right,
with Pete, defensively speaking, I'm calling for more pressure. I'm calling for more of a willingness to take it to the offense and really try to bring this, as opposed to sitting on your heels all the time and trying to protect against the deep play and then get death by 1,000 pinpricks, essentially, is how your defense then gets killed from that. And so I hear the same thing a little bit from you with Shannon, which is a little bit, go for it, trust it, go, try to, if you're going to lose, go lose 100 miles an hour going forward, as opposed to just kind of slightly trying to ease back and prepare yourself for the hit a little bit. And it's kind of interesting to hear you, because I can kind of see even though they're completely different things and there's not really a strain between them, I see a little bit of a comparison there in that respect of things. And coaches are just risk averse, I guess, man.
It's funny, and you're either that guy or you're not. You look at what Detroit's doing, and they go for it probably too much, right? Like there's the other side of things where, man, they're going for it on fourth down and 4 at their own 30. Campbell's like, hell yeah, I trust my team. Let's go.
I picture him doing a shot and he's like, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, bro,
between every call.
It's the first quarter. Why are you doing this right now? And Shanahan, it's funny because outside looking in, you see a guy who dresses young and he's got the flat brim hats and the Yeezys and the cool guy. And you would think, okay, well, this guy's, he's a little bit risky. He's old school when it comes to decision making and maybe playing it a little too close to the vest. Like Shanahan is a very old soul when it comes to coaching, in my opinion.
Yeah. I could totally see that with him. I could totally see that with him, and it's probably it does help him on certain ways, but it's that way of just occasionally you go, come on, go for it, Kyle, go. Pedal down. Put that pedal to the floor. Mumbles with a $10 donation. Thank you, Mumbles. Says Adams for Bosa. I don't think he's taking that one. Keep in mind, Jamal hasn't had a pass thrown at him since week 1. No completions. Adams and Tariq Islands. You can see why people are forced to keep pounding the rock versus our defense.
Yeah, no, I totally get it, man. And Adams, I mean, the PFF grade has got to be incredible.
Oh, it's insane this year for him. It's like he's like an 85. You know? Oh, it's insane. That's why you give up 2 first-round picks in the 3rd right there, Jay.
That's an elite comment right there.
Oof, boy, it's been brutal on that. And boy, Jamal does look like that body's falling apart. And irony is, Jay, that we have supposedly offered that extra first-round pick. Why? Because you damn Niners were interested in his services and we were coming over the top of you for it.
Yeah, I know. And it's also why we had to throw in the extra pick to get CMC is because the Rams were trying to get him too.
I know. Yeah, exactly. Do you think you guys would have grabbed Baker, by the way, if he slipped past the Rams in the waiver wire?
I think so. It's funny because they didn't put in a claim, and I think everybody reads into that is, oh, they didn't want Baker. And I actually think that they were smart. You have a pulse of the league. I think they knew that they weren't going to have a chance at getting him. And so why put in a claim when you can not put in a claim and then show full confidence in Brock Purdy that he's your guy? Whether that was the truth or not, now all of a sudden you're giving this young kid even more confidence. So they knew they weren't going to get Baker. I think if they had a legit shot or thought they did, then definitely, not necessarily even as the starter, but man, it sure would be nice to have Baker Mayfield over Josh Johnson right now. I'll tell you that.
100%. And I think your point's absolutely apropos. And then they're on the waiver wire priority. They're at like 27th on that list. And they know there's going to be 26 teams ahead of us with higher priority that can grab them over it. So why do that? And yeah, it's makes complete sense why they didn't. But I do think he would have been probably over there, at least to Josh Johnson, especially this oblique situation going on with Purdy right now. You go, ooh, okay, well, hold on there. But thank you, Mumbles. I don't think we're going to talk him into Bosa for Adams. It was a tough sell with Tariq. I think I'm gonna have to throw quite a little bit more in to get Bosa. He values him. By the way, what's going on with him? How have you guys gotten away with not paying him yet?
He's still in year 4, so he'll be in year 5 next year. That's when they're going to work through that contract. And the Bosas traditionally do this. A lot of people thought that they would work out a deal this offseason. Like, if you look at the way Joey played things, they like to bet on themselves. And it's not like they're hurting for money in that family. That money, that family comes from money. So he's going to take that risk. And I mean, shoot, he might be defensive player of the year. You talk about he was going to get paid last offseason. Well, he's really going to get paid this offseason.
And it's interesting you guys bet on him like that, though, because it does go counter to, I know that you have the first round thing. I know the 5th-year option, but let's speak in real terms. If you have a guy who's 3 years in this league and he's outperformed his deal, he's coming to call in to get that contract extension, usually by that 4th year, and to get that commitment put in there. And the fact, good on Nick if he's voting on himself on this. I'll tell you what, though, boy, his brother set the market standard at $27.5 million, I believe, 3 years ago, 2 to 3 years ago.
We're going to be around 33 annually, I think.
33, maybe 35.
Yeah. Quarterback money.
So you'll have 35 going at that point when you sign Bosa. You got 35 to Bosa. You'll have 20 going to Debo. You got 17 to Kittle. You got 19 to Fred Warner. Jimmy Ward's
Armstead's up there.
Armstead's up there. Ward's at about 12. That's a lot of contracts on those books, bro.
Yeah, that's why these rookie quarterbacks playing good is important.
Come on, Brock.
Yeah, exactly.
With your 0.75% of the salary cap. Let's go. Oh, man. You guys are pulling it off, though. You're keeping everybody signed. Prop to you. Sometimes you got to lose guys on that, and you found a way to have been able to retain everybody.
Yeah, so we've gotten lucky.
That is awesome. Lester Cross, thank you for the $2 donation. Says, do you understand the concept of the tooth fairy? Am I missing something on that one?
I don't know. And you know what? Who knows how long ago this was? Maybe it would have played a lot better if we were in the middle of whatever conversation it was. But
fairly well,
I mean, if we're talking concepts, why not Santa Claus? It's close to Christmas time.
Yeah, let's talk in Santa Claus terms. Tooth fairy is kind of scary. I don't know if that horror movie that came out, but I always viewed it a little differently now.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, Lester, the $2 donation. Appreciate you. Sorry if we're a little slow on the acknowledgement on the donos, by the way. We're having a good talk, so it's hard to get over to you guys on the donuts nest thing. Randall with the $5 dono says, just subbed to your buddy's channel. Hope I don't get a bunch of Niners session now. You're on the algorithm, Randall. You get last second Spores. You got Grant Cohn coming down. Who's the other Niners that he's getting? What else is about to flood the gates there for him?
Well, I appreciate you subbing. Definitely. We'll take the subs, man. We're trying to make that push for 10,000. So I do appreciate it. And just anytime I do this on my channel where we go behind enemy lines, I always encourage all of my followers to go sub to their channel. If for nothing else, if your team wins, first of all, if you guys lose, it doesn't even exist. The sub, just stay subbed and don't, show your face. But if you win, oh man, you get to roll into the chat feeling good about yourself, talking all sorts of trash. So it's a good place to be as a subber.
No better place than an NFC stream that you get to dine on the tears of your opponent. The tears are tasty. They're not salty at all. It's honestly like fine wine that's had 100 years down in the cellar. Is really a little bit like the equivalency on that one. Yeah. Well said. And yes, if you guys haven't, by the way, I mentioned earlier, but just again, this is Jesse from Last Second Sports here on YouTube. So if you've not subscribed to Jesse, go over to Last Second Sports on YouTube. I will put it down in the, I'll actually put it in the comment. We'll just pin in the comment at the end of this. But go over there and do get subscribe to him. He does great content over there. There's some great breakdowns. You want to know what's going on in enemy lands. You want to know what they're up to, right? Know what your enemy's doing. Because if you're not paying attention to them, they can sneak up on your back door and invade you overnight. Okay. So we don't want that to occur. Thank you, though, Randall. And I appreciate you subbing up on that over to Jesse's channel on that. A Y2KH with a $5 dono says, Pete and Carroll definitely re-sign Geno. Walker versus the 49ers if he plays, or James Conner versus Denver's. This is the playoffs.
Man, and I got to say this, not the only fantasy league, by the way, that is in the playoffs early, but with bye weeks going on, why are commissioners not pushing the play? If you're the commissioner of your league, then you're doing it wrong, Y2K, but hopefully that's not on your shoulders. But man, there's still bye weeks going on. Playoffs shouldn't start till next week. However, if I'm having to play one, I'm going James Conner. 49ers defense, man, is not anything that you want to play with. I know Denver's got a good defense as well, but that team is falling apart. They've got really nothing to play for at this point. They're not bought into what the hell's going on over there, and the 49ers are going all in. Plus, in my opinion, something about playing guys on Thursday, they just never show up the way that they're supposed to. So I think Walker in another situation I would probably take, but this week I would go James Conner. That's me personally.
I think it's everything he said. I can't add much more onto it. The Niners in this first matchup with Rashad Penny, there dedicated resources to stop in the run and said, we don't think you're going to be able to have Geno set up long enough in that pocket to push the ball up the field for those long developing routes. So we'll squeeze everything up, and it worked. I don't know why they wouldn't do the very same thing here. Walker is also coming into this game dealing with an injury in his foot. How healthy is he really at this point? The Denver Broncos are most likely going to be playing Brett Rippon, which means that their offense is going to be just as stagnant every bit as it's been up until this point this year, which means that the Cardinals will be able to continue to run throughout the game to whatever degree they do, even though they suck at running the ball and they don't commit to it at all. Connor's also a short yardage back, so there's a good chance he gets you the cheap, easy touchdown around the goal line, and he only has 35 yards on the day, right? So he's got at least a little bit of a higher floor, I think. Walker might have the higher ceiling of play if he can go crazy, but just because with Walker, it's a matter of busting that big route. You can stop him for the 6 or 7 plays, but then he gets loose on that one play where it's just like, whoa, that's how he gets you. So, but I'd go James Conner, Y2K. And I agree. You can't have playoffs when you got buys still going on. That's ridiculous. What are these leagues in a hurry to get done or something? Come on.
Yeah.
I bet what they're trying to do is they're trying to factor in that final week of the year when everybody's sitting and resting, and it's like not legitimate games, I guess, going on. I bet it's probably trying to get out ahead of that a little bit.
Yeah, but see, like traditional leagues in the past would start playoffs this week, and then they had a 17-week season, 16 games, 17 weeks. So like playoffs should just be pushed one extra week. You would still have 3 rounds of the playoffs. You'd be able to avoid the 18th week. Totally understand. I think the default on some of these sites, if you don't change it, is the playoffs start this week. But man, you got some heavy hitters for fantasy wise. I mean, imagine you got Taylor at running back. I mean, that's a top-notch player, and all of a sudden he's on a bye week. Like, oh, what a killer for a playoff team.
Hard to also do your draft every year where you're looking out into like week 13, 14 about
Yeah.
bye weeks and trying to calculate off that with top end guys on where you're paid. It's already hard enough to build in all the factors of scheduling and opponents and where they are from a wear down factor. Just adds just another layer.
You know what? To be fair, actually, I'm way off on this. Playoffs actually are starting in normal leagues this upcoming week, but I do know leagues that started playoffs this last week. I guess we're already on Monday. Shoot, we play Thursday night football. So playoffs are starting right in your league if that is what week 1 of playoffs. But I do know of leagues that playoffs started this last week, and I'm like, what are you? Why? Why would you do that to the members of this league? These poor guys. So, but yes, technically playoffs should be starting this next week. I forgot we're already in a whole new week of freaking football. It's crazy.
It's flying by. This year's just like blink my eyes and it's gone by. I can't believe we're this deep into the year. It's only a couple of games left in the season, so it's just But yeah, it's strange. That's strange there. But good luck, man, Y2K. Get him this week. Wootang Financial with a $5 donation says, let's have a banger on Thursday Night Football. Long live the rivalry. Hey, I don't know if you feel this way, but I do feel like the Niners are our biggest rivalry in the division. I know the Rams are annoying, and the Cardinals are just kind of like, I can't take them seriously.
Cliff Kingsbury and no, I don't take them seriously. And it looks like the Rams are about to be down for a while, which kudos to them. They got their Super Bowl, but that thing's coming crashing down. In Seattle, man, I got to say, as a Niner fan, this offseason, I was dancing on what I thought would be the grave of the Seahawks for the next few years. And I was so happy that we wouldn't have to deal with you guys for the next few years. And
we ain't going everywhere.
Carroll, man, you guys figured it out. You guys turned it around a hell of a lot quicker than what I thought. It's going to be us and you for the foreseeable future, this thing seems like. So here we go again. And I will say this, even before Seattle was good, the moment you came over from the AFC and came into the NFC, I immediately hated your guts. And it had nothing to do with the rivalry. But being in the Pacific Northwest, those 49er Fox games all of a sudden went away and they became Seattle Seahawks Fox games.
Yeah.
And you got to remember, like, this is before streaming and some of these other things. So I was unable to watch my 49ers every week the way that I had done for so many years. So immediate hate for the Seahawks the moment they came to the NFC West.
Completely understandable, man. That would drive me crazy too, because you're right. You only had 2 games. You had 3 games a weekend you could watch, aside from the primetime stuff. It was like you wanted one of those 3 to be one team that you were definitely, voting for. And I love this rivalry, man. It's become every bit as heated as it was for us. I'm a young kid in the 80s, grew up with the AFC West, and there was the Raiders in Denver and all that. This has become every bit that and more. I think it's probably, if you look at the NFC from my standpoint, I know those NFC East guys like to talk about the Cowboys and Eagles or the Giants and the Cowboys, but kind of for my money right now, this is still kind of the best rivalry going. And since that 2000 kind of 12, 11 standard, 13 standard that was in place, where there was a point there where we were the 2 best teams in that conference. I thoroughly believe that in 2013, that our Super Bowl in that conference champion, that was the Super Bowl that year.
It wasn't the Super Bowl. Yes.
It was in that conference championship game. And I want to get back to the stage again where we're the 2 best teams in the NFC. I kind of dug that. I kind of liked that. It was kind of a nice thing to be like, what are you going to say? What? I got the best team in this conference. I got to play twice a year. Like, what are you? Who are you? What? Oh, you got the Cowboys and Eagles? Dan Schneider?
Yeah.
No. So I don't. I feel that
Kaepernick
way about
and
this.
Russ, man. That was
talk
about
great.
Some fun times.
The defense with all the from Jared Smith to Alden Smith being the freak show he was out the gate, the bullying mentality of that defense, and us trying to match that point at that point from a physicality standpoint. You just had these 2 just insane physical teams in the league at a time when nobody was wanting to be physical anymore, where everybody was falling away from the physicality element of it. And how that much greater that we have 2 teams right now, again, set the stage as we go forward to be what? Physical. Play some defense, be mean about it, try to be both. I love it. I'm here for this kind of football. I love throwing the ball around the park, but I'm all for the old school. Let's get some knuckles bloody and let's hit each other in the mouth for 60 minutes and see where the cards fall where they may.
Yeah, and I'll never forget, man, when Cam Chancellor took Vernon Davis's soul. So that's something I'll always remember.
That hit was insane, dude, wasn't it? For a modern hit and keeping his head out of it and not being a dirty one. Holy mackerel. One of the hardest hits I've ever seen on a football field, and testament to the tight end getting up and being able to just stand up off of that hit. I mean, hit him so hard as like the sweat came off his face through the face mask. Like Cam was freaky, man.
Brutal.
He was freaky. Oh, thank you, Pumpkin. We got a pumpkin channel. I got a cat named Pumpkin, so we've got to use this creative pumpkin. Thank you for the $2 donation. Says, go 49ers. Also need more salmon treats.
That's really funny. That's really funny.
Oh, that's awesome. Pumpkin, hit me on Twitter. I'll get you a picture of my cat so you can get the actual picture of my cat in your profile photo. We can update.
That is hilarious. The cat, and your cat's a 49er fan. That's great.
Oh yeah. Well, that's it. My cat looks like that too. She's orange too. So you even chose the right, wrote the right color emoji. Cat
That's
emoji.
legit.
I love it, man. Oh, man. Good luck with you guys on that. Mr. Kane, my brother from another mother, says, thank you for the $5 donation. Says, gotta go, but like and sub to both channels, y'all. Great content. Appreciate the different perspective, Jay. I take Jalen Carter, but if not, trade back.
Yeah.
Go Hawks. Well, thank you, Mr. Kane. I thank you for the $5 donation. And me and you, we think of like on this thing. I'm the same like-minded trade. Trade back first. If not, trade back. Jalen Carter is awesome. I'm not as sold on this Will Anderson generational defensive talent stuff, Jay. I keep hearing that at every damn turn I look around. Turn on the tape of the guy. I don't see a motor. I don't see refinement in his pass rush repertoire. I don't see a lot of first step quickness or bend. Kind of wonder where all the hype comes from with that guy. A lot of productivity last year in Alabama. Maybe he's just that dude and I'm not getting it. I have guys every year that I kind of just miss on where I can't quite get my head wrapped around who they are, or how great they are. Have you had a chance to take a look at Will yet?
I really haven't. And I got to be honest, I'm not the biggest college football guy, but I do put in a lot of film study when it comes to draft time. Maybe not as much this year because the 49ers are going to be,
picking in the fifth round first.
Not a lot of picks out there for San Francisco, but I spend a lot of time on it and I absolutely love it. And I'll go on that grind anyways, just because it's fun for me to know who's coming out, because this is the next generation. But no, I really haven't put a lot of time into a lot of these guys. So who knows? I don't know yet. I'm not the guy to answer that question.
No, they'll be fun to watch. He's a fun player to watch, though, Anderson. But for me, Carter's that guy he looks like to me Chris Jones a little bit in my first view of him. So,
okay.
Not a Donald, but just kind of a wrecker up shop up there on the front of it. Thank you, though, for subbing up to Last Second Sports on that too, Mr. Cannon. Guys, yes, do get subbed up here to Last Second Sports. If you are not already here on YouTube, I really would appreciate it. David Pugh with the $10 donation. Thank you, David. For a team that has gone as far as Russ could take us, a team that now goes as far as our rookies has taken us, isn't that bad? A top 3 pick ain't too bad neither, baby. Respect to the Niners too. IG. 100% well said, man. It's been a nice part of this year, brother, is being able to win games and be in the playoff contention, title contention, and you're looking at a top 5 pick. I got to be honest with you. It kind of feels at times like this year, Jay, of sort of like this is sort of dreamland city for a fandom. You don't get to experience this ever, relish it a little bit, right? Because you don't go down this road very often.
No, it's a great place to be, man, because the worst thing that you can be is mediocre, because you're always in the middle of the draft. You're just getting close to the playoffs, but not quite making it in. You guys might make the playoffs and have a top 3 pick. The Eagles, golly, man, the number 1 seed in the NFC, a top 5 pick, that's a fantastic place to be. Holy cow. And even the Lions, they've got an outside shot at the playoffs. They've got a top pick from the Rams. You 3 teams really are kind of living the dream right now, where you're competitive in a year, but also are still banking on getting a top 5, top 7 pick. That's incredible. You guys are lucky, very lucky. Definitely relish it.
It is hard. Like, you guys got Bosa. You had to go through that year to get that number 1 pick. You had to suffer through that pain. Garoppolo's injury, I think, happened that year. You've had to go through that, and that's usually the pain and misery you have to suffer to get that. And we got that top of the 2nd round pick too of Denver. So let's not forget that as well. So it's not just one; it's also both. But it's amazing. And boy, the Eagles general manager Howie Roseman has done one hell of a job out there in building that team. It's as much as I'd love to see Schneider get the general manager of the year here with our Hawks and the Russell trade and all that, can't deny the fact that Roseman has been every move he's hitting, isn't it? Like, everything's coming up kind of gold for that guy.
Yeah, they talk about fleecing. They fleeced the Saints.
Oh, they took them. They took them. And the Saints there. What were the Saints doing? You talk about being middle of the road, knowing you got to know your identity and where you're at. Sean Payton leaves, Drew Brees leaves. You've been dealing with this $80 million over the cap every single offseason, and now you're gonna try to go for it now. With a guy like Trevor Penning, by the way, who is one of the rougher, I'm sure you watched a little bit of it, rougher tackle prospects tape to come out of. Like, he can run block like nobody's business, but as good a run blocker as he is, as bad a pass blocker as he is,
Yeah. Oh,
which isn't
yeah.
good from the left tackle position. It's not
No.
the most beneficial thing. Well, I've kept you here damn near 3 hours here, Jesse. So I'm sorry to keep you so long on that. Well, we'll kind of wrap this up a little bit. I think I covered all the things. One thing I want to talk to you about that we didn't cover that I just want to touch on really quickly, because I loved it. It was great to see you kind of go viral a little bit for this. It's always good to see like another person, pop up. And folks, you might be aware of Jesse and him coming up on your radar if you hadn't already subbed to him, and that he was kind of known for proposing a little bit with Trent Williams on tipping plays earlier this year. And it drove a really great debate, I felt like, kind of nationwide a little bit on the value of that or not the value of that. As we finish up with this, what can you just tell me where you kind of stand on that in that situation? Because I didn't get a chance to talk with you about it. I'm actually kind of interested on where you think about that. Does it matter? Does it not matter? Does your perspective change from when you first kind of brought it up? And for folks that don't aware, Trent Williams was showing his stance pre-snap, whether it was a run or a pass blocking play. And Jesse caught on to it, brought people's attention to it, and it sparked this debate.
Yeah. And what's crazy is actually the first I had heard of it was week 1. There was a Bears rookie who'd gotten a sack and a half in that game against the 49ers. Oddly enough, hasn't recorded a sack since. And he talked about how Trent was tipping plays. And we didn't put a lot of thought into it. We just kind of glossed over it, whatever. It was week 1. We were more mad about losing to the Bears and what's going to happen with Trey Lance. And so everybody just kind of forgot about it. And so a couple weeks ago, I actually was going to do a film breakdown of Deebo Samuel. And what ended up happening was I was getting bored watching Deebo because the way they were running him in the offense was super boring in that particular game. And my eyes got glued to Trent Williams. And so I'm like, hold on a second, this guy's still tipping plays. And this is very obvious. So then I went back and just every single play, run, pass, run, pass. I think I missed one play out of the 72 offensive plays they had that week. I'm like, this isn't good. So I just threw it out. I'm like, hey, Trent Williams is still tipping plays. Didn't really throw out an opinion on it. And it sparked a national debate. I mean, we had, football players talking about it. McAfee's show picked it up. It went crazy viral. And a lot of people were really upset about it, and I think they lost the concept too of the response I got mainly was, well, it doesn't matter. He's the best left tackle in the game. And I'm like, hold on. The point of this is not Trent Williams. Trent Williams is so elite. He's like Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan in his prime, where it's like, yeah, when he goes in the post, he's going to hit you with a turnaround fadeaway, and there's nothing you're going to do about it. In fact, he could tell you what he's about to do. Trent Williams is elite. He can look across the guy and say, hey, I'm going to do this, and he's going to still win because he's that good. But it's everybody else that might be suffering if the defense is communicating. And, one thing that came out of it was there wasn't an NFL player that disagreed with me that he wasn't tipping plays like that. I think that the consensus was, yes, you're right, he's tipping plays. How much does it matter? And I think that's where the disagreement came in. Most people think that it doesn't matter. I don't know how much it matters. And I still am kind of in that boat where I don't know how much it matters, but it's not nothing. It's certainly not nothing. And then I went and found an old film, NFL films thing of Bill Belichick talking about going and playing the Ravens in the playoffs and how their right tackle had a similar tell, and they were excited to play that game. And he ended up sitting out, and so it screwed with their game plan a little bit. But that right there kind of sealed the deal for me. I'm like, listen, this is the greatest coach of all time telling you that this means something. It means something. It got back to Trent Williams. He was pissed and irritated with the questions that were thrown his way. So it was a lot of fun. I'll say this. It was a lot of fun. I will also say Trent Williams is still tipping plays and they're winning. So, maybe it doesn't mean anything.
Well, yeah. And so folks, go look at Jesse's Twitter if you want to know if it's a run or a pass this week for the Niners, because Trent Williams will tell you. So you can actually predict it from that standpoint of things. I know you're not one my necessarily opinion on this, and I've kept you a long time, but you're right to bring it up. Number one, it was Orlando Brown, by the way, because Orlando Brown's the guy, of course, who got hit once in the eyeball by a ref with a flag and lost his eye. Yeah. So one of Belichick's favorite all-time players, and his son's currently playing for Kansas City as their left tackle. It matters. because to your point on that, there's other players in that line. You don't even have to communicate it. I can have all my defensive linemen turn their head and look at Trent, look at Williams pre-snap, and they're going to know. It doesn't require a single bit of communication at that point. It's that easy to read. So the thought process that it doesn't matter, or the thought process, here's the other argument I hear. Well, defenses already know it's coming every snap. No, they don't. I watch all 20 tape constantly and watch guys taking false steps in the wrong direction. If they all know what time it is every play, why are these suckers so often moving in the wrong direction? Because they're getting confused or tricked. So no, they don't know. That's not the case, and it makes a difference. And frankly, I think, Jesse, it's a big difference, frankly. And I'm in everything you said about Trent Williams. I'm in agreement. He's a generational tackle. He'll be the Walter Jones of this era. If I can steal an equivalency. But with all that being said, if Walter Jones was tipping plays, it would bother me. And I think it would be a little bit of an issue and worth bringing up. And props to you for catching it and bringing it into attention. I think the fact that they get so angry about it, when they get angry about it, Jesse, when their first thing is they get pissed, they might be kind of close to the mark. You're kind of hitting close to the mark at that point more than you're wrong, I think. And I feel like that was an indicative of that. But props to you on catching that, man. I brought a smile to my face when I saw that you had brought it up, and then to watch people just freaking out over it. I was like, get him, Jesse.
You know what? Well, you know what? I want to know what's really funny to me, Brandon. And this whole thing has kind of come full circle, and I've kept my mouth shut about it just because whatever. The time has passed, and it went viral, and whatever. But it's funny because so the players that came out and spoke against it were Emmanuel Acho and Mitchell Schwartz.
Of course he was.
Yeah, so it was Emmanuel Acho and Mitchell Schwartz, and everybody's like, "See, you're an idiot. These players are telling you one thing." Well, you fast forward 3 weeks, Emmanuel Acho is getting blasted for having one of the worst NFL takes of all time. Schwartz had a terrible take this week as well. And Jerry Rice came out and went on his Instagram and said, "Shanahan, can you please stop running your elite players like Trey Lance and Deebo Samuel up the middle? I would like to keep these guys healthy." And it's funny because all the same people that told me I was an idiot because Acho and these NFL players came forward and told me how it was, they don't want to listen to the great Jerry Rice when he has an opinion. All of a sudden, his opinion doesn't matter. So I found that an interesting contrast.
It's amazing. It's amazing. But that's the world you get in with this kind of game with it. It's like, this is the game we play a little bit,
Yeah.
but it's well caught by you to bring it up, and because it wouldn't have been brought up otherwise. And who knows? I mean, to a degree, Jesse, I'm not trying to say give pro props too much, but if it was something that, what if Trent went into like a playoff game they needed, and he's like, this week I'm not going to do it. This week I'm going to play my stance straight up, and catches a team off guard by doing that.
Yeah.
And you've set the stage for that to potentially happen. And that's where we don't ever, as commentators, have an ability to have an effect on what's happening, especially an effect in a positive potential way. And if it's something that does correct it at some way down the pathway and that respect of things, and you had an impetus to doing that, deserve props for doing it. And again, how hard is that from our standpoint and the talent 10,000 miles away view we have of things to have that kind of impact and effect in that way? So that's why I wanted to bring it up as much as anything, is to give you the props, but also just well sought by you. And that's what a great fan should do when we do this type of stuff, is to kind of catch that kind of stuff.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Hell yeah. Pumpkin with another $5 don't know. Thank you, Pumpkin. Wow. It says, I'm serious about those salmon treats. Well, we got them right here, my man. Right here. So as soon as I finally relinquish Jesse here in a second, she's going to be having a mouthful of these salmon treats. I think these are technically shrimp, but it all is the same thing for them. Thank you though, Pumpkin. I appreciate it. Feels weird to say that, by the way. Thanks for the donation, Pumpkin. Adrian, next to the $2 donation, says, I was late to this amazing stream. Any predictions? Well, it's a good time for predictions as we wrap this up, Jesse. I haven't asked for you. I've given you mine without you wanting it. I've told you that your final Niners are going to lose, so I suppose turnabout's fair play. Give me a final prediction for your Niners traveling into the Pacific Northwest this Thursday night.
Man, I think this game is certainly going to be a lot tighter than what it was last week. The offense is clicking. We put up over 30 points a couple weeks in a row. I don't see that happening. I think Geno's probably going to do a good job protecting the football this week. I think that's one thing the 49ers have really started to run away from teams because they're getting a lot of turnovers. I don't see that from Geno this week. I think Geno's going to play a pretty sound game. Maybe he'll give us one, but I could see Brock Purdy maybe giving y'all one too and throwing his first interception in a game that he's actually played all the way through. So I'm going to go 24-17 49ers. I still think this defense is legit. I think this defense is gonna hold the Seahawks down, especially if I don't know if Walker's gonna play, but I know he's not healthy. That helps the 49ers out. And I think that it's going to be a little bit of a defensive game. I think the 49ers are going to come in with a game plan that we're going to grind it out, go for 30 plus runs. I think that's the smart thing to do here. And ultimately the 49ers pull it out, but it's going to be a tight one, 24-17 Niners.
I'm going to probably just go ahead and match up your score there and just take your score with it. I've said there is a pathway to us winning this game where it's a low scoring game and it's just kind of gets to be a bit of a meat grinder where nothing, it's a Thursday night game, sloppy, nothing's working. You guys are, it just get that that's your pathway to winning it. Do I think that's going to play out? Probably not. And it's probably a minimum of a one touchdown win. I think I'll go to that point just because, like you said before, these division games met out this way one way or another, especially being a Thursday night. So fortunately, I can't see us getting this win right now. We can't create any holes in the running game right now, Jesse, especially our interior of our line just cannot move guys off the ball. You're not even getting the 3 yards, right? We're not even getting to that point that you can get on a low end point of a run game. We're getting like -1 right at the line of scrimmage. And I don't know how we do any better against your guys' team right now that is doing so well all the way around as far as your defense is concerned. I mean, you put the clamps on Brady last week. You guys were choking him out. I saw the still with
literally,
the one guy
that was brutal.
that was
It looked like you remember Mad TV, Fire Marshal Bill?
Yeah, it did look like his whole look. It was like his over.
Or no, that was in Living Color. And Living. Sorry, I got my.
I know which one you meant though.
Yeah,
In
Living Color.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something.
Yeah, that's what he looked like there. It's crazy.
No, listen. Let me tell you something. Well, thank you, Adrian X, though, for the double dono. Actually, another donation says, if we stop the 49ers attack, do we win? If we keep you guys under 100 yards rushing in this game, do we win, Jesse?
Well, I mean, that's your path to victory. Listen, Purdy's playing good football, but he's still the last pick in the draft. He's still a rookie. I think if you are in a situation where you have a small lead and you've got to force Brock Purdy to go win the game and everybody knows that it's coming, that certainly gives you the best chance to win because you got a player like Woolen out there that can certainly ball hawk. We're down our wide receiver and Deebo Samuel. I think that is the best chance to win. I still fully rely on this defense. I think if it comes down to, hey, which defense can pin down the other offense, I think the 49ers could still pull this game out because of the defense, but I'd feel a lot less good about it if you can hold us under 100 yards rushing for sure.
Yeah, I do think if we keep him under 100, Adrian X, if we keep him under 30 attempts, even, I think that is a pathway to winning. I think it does come simply down to that because I think Shanahan's going to stay committed to the running game. And if it's the least bit of successful, he'll get over the top of that mark. Our defense will wear down. Our defense will then break at that point. So we've got to find a way to keep those guys fresh, find a way to control the time of possession to some degree. We lost it almost 2-1 last week. And if that's the case this week, it's going to be an easy win for the Niners if they can get a 2-1 over that 30 carry mark. But that is really the key, Adrian X, is if we can or we cannot stop the run. I wish I had more confidence to say that we can, but unfortunately, I can't say that. I think you're going to probably carry this one through. Last question on my list I just wanted to ask you on this. A fun question. Is Tala Hufanga going to be the next Troy Polamalu?
Oh, man, whoa. Talanoa Hufanga has been incredible, and he's certainly baby Polamalu. And they work out in the offseason together. He's been his mentor for a few years now, and it's awesome to see. He plays very similar. The thing about Polamalu is he played the way that Hufanga does, but he also had elite athleticism. We're talking about a guy in his prime that was 4.3s, and Hufanga is more of a 4.5, 4.6 type of guy. Great instincts, but yeah, I mean, Polamalu, shoot. No, I don't. There's no way I could predict that. But Hufanga is going to be in this league an enforcer for a long time. He is a heat-seeking missile. I mean, if there's anybody that plays like Polamalu, it's 100% Hufanga. He just doesn't have that elite athleticism that Polamalu had that really made him special. But definitely, if you like defensive players that fly around and just love to hit and are smart and ahead of their game, man, Hufanga is about as fun to watch in this league right now. Him and Fred Warner and Greenlaw. Put your hate for the 49ers aside. Those three names, watch them this Thursday, and you're going to love what you see from those guys because they play with their hair on fire, man. They are throwing their bodies with reckless abandon and trying to hurt you every single play. It's fun to watch.
Boy, they are. There was one shot I had of Fred Warner, I think it was back in the Cowboy game, where they got a pitch play that he's tracking down, and you watch the all 22 tape, you probably know the play where he's got to just completely get rangy on it. And he comes and arrives at the play, and he just leaps and basically torpedoes his way and knocks the guy out. Just a great hit, but shows off the speed, and then arrives with the bad intentions and the ability to be physical also at the point when he arrives at the ball carrier. Just, he is, I think, the best middle linebacker in the sport right now, by far. But I want to bring up Tafanga because you mentioned last time I did on your show who's a player that you're not maybe aware of, that you should be aware of. I think that's a player that Seahawks fans should become more aware of for the year he's having. And again, a vast improvement over Jarquez Tart, dare I say.
Oh, Tart. Yeah. Listen, and it's funny because a big part of this fan base really liked Jaquiski Tart. He's been generous with his time. He, went on some of the 49ers podcasts. And so I think there was some bias there from some of the guys. Understandably so. They befriended him, but Tart was a good player, but Hufanga this year has already matched the career interceptions from Tart. So shows you how good of a player he is.
In interceptions, and he brings the physicality. It's like that. You don't usually get that from the strong safety position, and that's really unique. That's why there is some shades of Paul Mall to his game and what he gives you there, though I agree with you. It's 4.65 to 4.3. Paul Mall being a top 20 first-round pick, this kid being a fifth-round pick, there's a reason. There's a difference between those two, but he's awesome. He's awesome. Well, I've kept you far too long tonight. Sorry, Jesse. I was really slow on my donos, so that's on me, brother. I owe you some.
No, it's all good, man. I appreciate it.
It's been some fun. It's always some fun conversation for you, though. I love having you in here and talking shop on this. It just helps our perspective out so much, having you in, and you run an awesome channel on your side of things over there.
No, Brandon, I appreciate it. And 3 hours went way too fast. I could do this every week. And I think, I think we've settled in that we're going to do this twice a year going forward.
100%.
And this is going to be a fun rivalry. I think we need to start doing a preseason preview together as well, especially
100%.
because we're probably looking at the two top teams in the NFC West for the foreseeable future. I think doing a preseason stream is a must now. So at the very least, 3 times a year. And if we play in the playoffs, you might get to see us together 4 times a year. I love it.
This may not be the final matchup between us here. You never know. I mean, even if,
Very true.
sneaking the back playoffs, weirder things have happened in the past. So no, let's commit to doing it. Let's commit to, as I say with this, it's all about expanding, man, and doing more and more to eventually be able to just do this full time 24/7. And that includes having you part of this process, both sides of our channels on it. If you're not already subscribed, go up to YouTube, go up to that search bar there, type in this Last Second Sports. You're going to go there. You're going to subscribe to his channel. That's Jesse with Last Second Sports. I really appreciate you doing so. Show the love from us Hawk fans over there. Those Niner fans have shown me love. He's gotten them to subscribe to me. I mean, you know how hard it is to get 49er fans to subscribe to a Hawk channel? That's you might as well go through the Sahara Desert without a bottle of water and hope to survive. So I appreciate him. I appreciate him doing that. I had a great time with you as always, Jay. Part of why I couldn't let you go is I wanted to have such great discussion here and being able to turn over all these different topics. So thank you for coming on the channel here. We will do this again really shortly. Do get subscribed. Do hit that like button. Subscribe on this side too if you're not already. But we're in for a fun game, man. It's going to be the game of the year for us as far as our standpoint. This is a big game on where it dictates what's happening in this division. It all comes down to this, Jesse. It always was going to be this, wasn't it, huh?
It was meant to be, Brandon. I never thought in a million years that we would be this far into the season and it would be these two teams fighting for the division. I knew the Niners would be there. The Seahawks have surprised the hell out of all of us. You guys run a hell of a franchise over there. We hate your guts. But this is a rivalry that we need. We need this in our veins. Inject it every year, please. And it looks like we're going to get that. Brandon, thank you so much for having me as always. Chat, thank you for being respectful and taking it easy on me. I appreciate it. And I can't wait to do this again, man.
100%. Thank you as well, man. You're awesome, brother. And yep, it's going to come down to this for a long foreseeable future. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you to Jesse for jumping on in the house here. And thank you to all for you guys out there for hitting that like button and subscribing up as you guys do. Thursday night football. It's going to be a war. We'll see who comes out standing, but it's exciting to be here and it's been one hell of a season. So thank you so much, Jesse. I appreciate you, brother. You guys have a great one. And please don't forget, go Hawks. I'm not going to make you say go Hawks.
I'm not going to